Okay, let's call to order the regular scheduled meeting of Monday, June 25th, 2012, with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini?
Here.
City Clerk Patterson here. Council members Ratty? Here. Lawson?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Kerrigan?
Here.
Schmidt?
Here.
City Manager Carey?
Here.
City Attorney Adams? Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, we have no invocation speaker today, but if you'd all stand, our city clerk is very attuned to giving the invocation, so we'll have Linda Patterson do the invocation. Thank you, Linda.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the people that are here today that have an interest, Lord, in government and the authority that you've placed in this world. I ask, Lord, that you would just bless our council as they consider the last day of our council meeting of our fiscal year, Father. And I pray you would give them wisdom, Lord, and just a working together a spirit, Lord. I pray and I thank you for the people that work at the city, that take care of our city, Lord, the men and women who are out on our streets to watch over our sewers and our streets and our sidewalks, the gentlemen who take care of us from the fire, the men and women at fire, men and women at police, but also, Lord, the people who work at City Hall that care very much for each person that walks in the door. I just ask you to bless this entire time in this city. We pray this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Linda. That was wonderful. If you'd remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mr. Smith, would you lead us?
If you'll join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have comments from the public. I have two here to speak under item 6.4, so I'll hold those two till now. Anyone under any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of the agenda. If when you approve the agenda, I'd like to take 4.3 before 4.2 because it'll be very quick, and I don't need Mr. McRoberts sticking around for a long, long time. So, any other changes to the agenda? Ms. Ratty.
Move to approve the agenda with the 4.3 and 4.2.
Do you have a second, Mr. Schmidt?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Yeah, well, here we go again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is recommendation to approve minutes of June 11th, 2012. Any omissions or corrections? Looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve the minutes of June 11th, 2012. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is announcements and presentations. We have a proclamation, accommodation for Adam Mayberry's retirement from the Secret Witness Board of Directors. Mr. Mayberry, you want to come up front? Mr. Lightfoot?
Well, Mayor and Council, my name is Ken Lightfoot. I represent Secret Witness. I'm the chairman of the Board of Directors at this time. Secret Witness was established about 34 years ago. We received no monetary support from local government or from government of any kind. We exist through contributions of corporations and individuals in our community. Over this time, we have solved thousands of crimes, including 34 murders, several of which that I personally worked on when I was with the police department. And I can say that this organization has served the community very well. We were able to serve because of commitments of our volunteer board of directors. We spend not 1 cent, not 1 penny on salaries or facilities. And as I say, in our board of directors is an outstanding group. Adam Mayberry has served on our board for several years and was very instrumental in many of the programs we have. Recently, this last year, he was appointed by this group to serve on the Airport Advisory Committee. And I'm not sure that I have that group right, but he represents the city at the airport. And he has recognized that he just flat out doesn't have enough time to commit quality to both. And I think it's kind of a situation where he's more afraid of you than us, so he has decided to tender his resignation from our board of directors. And we want to recognize him for the outstanding work that he's done in our behalf. And as a result, I guess I also need to recognize Kathy Hildebrand, who is our treasurer here with us today. And Kathy and I want to present this recognition to Adam for a job well done. It says, Secret Witness, Adam Mayberry, in appreciation for your services as a member of the Board of Directors, May 2009 through May 2012. Thank you for your energy, great ideas, and willingness to go above and beyond to get our message out. And so we gratefully thank Adam for his work.
You know, Ken, it's kind of funny because when I see him around the office, he's just wandering around doing nothing. So I don't know why he wouldn't have a few minutes or a little time to spend with Secret Witness. Okay, we also have a commendation that I'd like to read. Whereas since its inception in 1975, Secret Witness has been a highly beneficial crime-fighting organization helping to solve thousands of crimes. Secret Witness serves Sparks, Reno, Carson City, and the surrounding communities of northern Nevada. Whereas too often in the past, vital information on crimes failed to reach the police because the people who held it feared retaliation or did not want to testify in court. Secret Witness was created to provide an avenue for community members to provide information on crime while remaining anonymous. Excuse me. Whereas Adam Mayberry has faithfully served as a member of the Secret Witness Board of Directors since May 2009. Whereas during his tenure on the Secret Witness Board of Directors and in his role as committee chairman, Adam provided an invaluable expert and skilled direction to the organization regarding its interaction with the local news media. Whereas Adam Mayberry's dedication and service to the community through his contributions to Secret Witness program has greatly enhanced the safety and quality of life in Sparks. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, join with the City Council in commending Adam Mayberry for 3 years of service to the Secret Witness program and wish him good luck and good health in the years ahead. One more smile.
Clearly more afraid of you.
This one I didn't write.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, let's move on to 4.3. Proclamation to the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority for Social Media Day. Jeremy McRoberts, you want to come up, please? I'll read the proclamation, then have you say a few words, Jeremy. Have a seat. Whereas today the City of Sparks joins Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval and Secretary of State Ross Miller in recognizing June 30th as Social Media Day. Whereas Social Media Day is an inaugural global event that recognizes the digital revolution happening right before our eyes. And whereas Social Media Day celebrates digital media and the technological advancements that enable us to connect with real-time information, share ideas, speak to the issues, and have our voices heard around the globe. And now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim June 30th, 2012, Social Media Day. Go ahead and say a few words, Jeremy.
Done perfectly. Basically, it's an annual global event celebrating the connected generation around the world. Our local event here is a networking event designed to bring people that speak online into an offline networking event where they can meet and mingle. And this year, we're actually incorporating a scavenger hunt as well, which will have us interacting with a lot of businesses around Reno and Sparks. So That's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Okay, any comments, questions?
Okay.
Thanks, Jeremy, for
Thank you
being
very
here.
much.
Appreciate it. Okay, let's move back to 4.2, presentation by J. Aldine regarding the flood project.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Jay Aldine, I'm the Executive Director of the Truckee River Flood Project. And let me ask you one question. I could probably talk for a long time, not that you want me to do that, and I get my chairman always tells me I need to cut it short. So should I give you the short version of this or a little bit longer? Say shorter than 10 minutes or longer than 10 minutes?
We'll give you 10 minutes is good, or shorter.
Okay, all right. What was that?
Put it in the red box.
I certainly can do that. For your information, this is a version of the river, the Truckee River, flowing through what was in 1940 a beautiful open meandering meadow, now is part of the very structured and good section of Sparks that generates the huge economic engine for this community. As you can see, it's overlain right on top of the version of the 1998 map and then the 1940 map. I just think that I found that very fascinating. Purpose of the workshop that we held was with our FMA board the Friday the 1st. And part of the reason for coming to you is because they made such great progress that I wanted to update not only Sparks, but also Washoe County and Reno. And I'll be talking with the Legislative Oversight Committee later on this week as well. So we're going to take this show on the road and talk to you about what the community, about what the board did. Tremendous advancements. The one thing that I wanted to stress is that for those that have questions, we will be receiving our funding and our land assets this week on Thursday, I believe it is, right? Yes. And looks like Chairman Smith and Chairman County Board Chair Bob Larkin will be having a signing party because they have hundreds of documents to sign and notarize, and it's just going to be a great fun. But not only that, we will receive $3 million into our checking account and about $13 million into our reserve investment accounts. So we will get the full amount of our funding, except for withholding that the county will do on contracts that have not been novated at this time. But we're working on that as well. And also I wanted to mention, we just had a meeting with the Corps. They started on our project. So that's a good thing to report to this body and also to all the other elected officials in this community, the fact that the Corps now will be working on our project again. This is as of today. They stopped working on our project around the first week in January of this year. So for all this time, nothing has gone along, and now they're getting going again, and that's just great news. And our chairman was with us for a majority of that meeting. So the purpose of the workshop that we did in front of our FMA was to talk about a full 5-year planning strategy, and that's to bring a two-prong approach. And you have in your board packets a copy of that timeline. It's a little bit more simplified than the one that I gave our board. Timelines and milestones, talk about future key decisions, and also talk about the implications of revising the locally preferred plan. Or it's what are we really going to build here? We wanted to explain cash flow impacts, the fact that we didn't have enough money to do some of the things that the board had wanted to do. Virginia Street Bridge is part of that discussion. The North Truckee Drain was part of that discussion. And we also talked about the preliminary engineering needs that we have for this project. We have 4 processes that we have to monitor. We have to monitor the rates, we have to monitor our public outreach, and we have to monitor full engineering and planning for this new revised LPP. We also have to monitor the Corps and the authorization process and how that's going to work. 2 important decisions: what are we going to build? In all fairness, at the end of the day, when we start to build stuff, what is it going to be? And the ultimate decision: do we stay with the Corps of Engineers or do we pursue this on our own? Everyone that has been following the flood project knows that the current locally preferred plan is a 117-year plan. The Corps is now studying only a 50-year plan. That's what they are studying, nothing more than that. We would like to revise and we recommended to the board that we revise the LPP from the 117 down to a 100-year level. Can we build a 117-year plan? No, we can't. The benefit costs are not good enough. They're below 1. Corps will not recommend that plan. It's too expensive, and again, the BC cost is too low. Will we build the 50-year plan? Well, I have talked to hundreds of individuals in this community, and not one of them have ever supported a 50-year plan. And although there's been no official vote by the board other than to consider the 50-year plan, it doesn't meet the community's goals. It does not meet FEMA floodplain requirements, and it doesn't allow development to occur. So it leaves us with a 100-year minimal plan for flood risk management. The plan that we need to build, or do we need to build a plan? We need rates. We have a 1/8 cent sales tax. We're getting about $6.5–7 million annually. That's not enough to build a substantially expensive project in the $400 to $500 million range. We don't have enough cash flow right now to be able to even do some serious tackling of small projects. And we also need to be able to do some serious planning in order to understand what this new revised LPP is
Jay,
going to
just a
be.
second. We have a question, Mr. Schmidt.
Sure. Yeah, take them. Yeah, I'll be glad to
You
take
know,
them.
you just some explanation there. You take in $6 to $8 million a year right now, sales tax, 1.8 cents. How much do we consume wages, salaries, and benefits, and ancillary cost outside of engineers and things? What are we consuming right now?
We have about $2 to $3 million in bond costs that we're still paying for the regional training facilities that were built on this money as well. And our salaries are about a little over $1 million, 1.2 or $3 million.
We have $3 million going for the train project out of flood money.
Yeah. Well, and again, the 1/8 cent sales tax was authorized. The regional training facility and both Dandini facilities were authorized out of the 1/8 cent. And we
Out of a quarter of a
That's out of the
cent.
quarter. I mean, it's we
The
got
Worth
to-
project gets an eighth, and the other.
no,
gets an eighth.
the other 8% went to
the
train. The public, the emergency management portion covered. We're paying for the Dandini facilities, I can tell you that.
Okay, maybe.
And maybe I need to bring back some additional information and answer, but I'll tell you that of the quarter cent, 1/8 cent went to the train tracks, and then the emergency management and the flood protection handled the other 3 facilities, the flood project and then the 2 facilities up at Dandini.
Okay, you may be right, but we'll have
Yeah.
somebody research it.
Can
We'll
we
do
get some information on it? Because I've never heard of this 8 cents sales tax going for
Well,
the train facility. I mean, that has,
I know something
No,
about the train
I
facility.
remember that.
it was?
I don't remember the eighth of a cent going to the training center.
Yeah, I know that happened.
It was
Yeah,
a quarter.
I know.
It was a quarter cent. I thought 1/8 was going to retrack and 1/8 was going to flood control.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's talking about Dandini's
Training center.
training center.
That we are paying
There's money that goes there, too.
There's 2 outstanding bond issues for that, and we're paying for both of those out of our, it's part of the
Yeah, you
377B
could be right.
plan. It's
And I didn't
there.
realize that either. I've never seen it in the budget listed as,
What's not listed in the budget as going towards the training facilities, it's to cover our debts, and our debt that we
That's
have
included in our debt.
incurred as part of
interesting.
the 377B plan, which is the NRS plan for what we spend our debt on.
So we have range between 2 and 4 million available cash flow.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to interrupt your presentation there.
Not at all. So what are the objectives of a revised LPP? What do we need to do? We need to provide 100-year protection. We need to have a plan that has a benefit cost that's better than 1. It needs to be obviously affordable, and it needs to meet the local protection goals. And it would be nice if it could be built by either the Corps or us. 2 paths to construction. And in your timeline, you have a dual-track timeline. The arrows that go on the right-hand side of the page, those arrows are one or the other tracks, and I'll explain how that works when I go through the rest of this presentation. But the two paths are, one, if Congress authorizes our revised locally preferred plan. In other words, we're not going to build the 50-year plan. If they do, then we move forward on the core path. It's pretty much a no-brainer decision. If the Congress does not authorize our 50-year plan, then we have to decide whether we want to, at that time, build that 50-year plan and continue with the Corps, or risk another possible way to get the Corps to build that plan, or we decide to build the project locally. Now, for the gratis humor of the plan, here are the balls that we have to watch going into the engineering, the public outreach, the rates, and as you can see, the Corps is the one that's bouncing really most off of the walls. What you have in your on the timeline that's in your packet are basically these four timelines going forward. The blue one on the top is to look at flood fees. The second one is the public. The yellow, the brown is the public and agency stakeholder. The green one on the third one is the preliminary engineering. And then the fourth one on the bottom is the Corps' timeline, which represents the authorization process. The first thing that we need to do is to get a rough cut, a tentative version of this revised LPP. We are committed to not only having staff do this, we're working with the TAC, our resource agencies, to try to get as many comments as we possibly can to get a tentative project. We will put that tentative project in front of the FMA in August. And reveal what that is and allow all comments to be considered and to take direction from our board. But assuming that the board buys off on that project, we have a lot of rate work to do. We have to basically further understand what that rate plan is. Remember, this is not a plan that's been vetted much in the community. We have to finalize the finances of the rate plan, the rate model, and we need to make sure that that's all been sold to the public. You'll notice the milestones. We will probably seek final approval of that. And when I say final approval, it certainly can be revised after that, but in March of 2013, and then have hearings at the end of 2013 and 2014 to adopt the rates. During that process, we will have the public outreach and education. We will continue to sell and educate the benefits of the project to the public. Now as the Corps gets involved, I have them on hold on this to the end of June. They'll actually start, well, they started today. I think that we'll actually get all the assignments made this next week, and then they will literally pick up pencils and start working next week. So this is fairly close. The two intermediate dates that are of great importance are the AFB and the Civil Works Review Board. The AFB becomes an opportunity for us to converse with the Corps and actually start to have them consider what a revised LPP would look like. The problem is we're not going to be far enough along. We need about a year in order to be able to develop that information. So we cannot develop enough information in time to get it to the AFB. So the only real chance, the only milestone that we have is the Civil Works Review Board. Now our consultants, being ex-Corps personnel, and also other Corps people that I'm been speaking with, think that this is a very reasonable approach. So therefore, we've asked the board to be able to allow us to do preliminary engineering. This preliminary engineering contract would allow us to go either locally or with the Corps, either way. It is not a waste of time or money or effort. In fact, it's the prudent thing to do because it allows us to be in a position in the future to know which way we can go.
Got a question, Mr. Kearney.
You know, you keep saying that the Corps is only going to look at a 50-year, and the board has already said they don't want to do a 50-year.
Yes.
So why are we even doing it? Why are we letting them? I mean, the Corps is going to look at 50 years. Why are we even looking at? Because we're not going to follow it.
That is a reasonable question. The Corps wants to get finished with an authorized project or a planning study. There are opportunities to change the Corps' direction ultimately. We have several opportunities, and I was just going to tell you the first one that we can do that. And that first one is right there at that Civil Works Review Board. We have the opportunity to port over all the information that we have studied for a year and basically communicate with that and say, listen, we've got a project that is, the benefit cost is better than one. It's a 100-year plan. It's what we want to build. And with Senator Reed's assistance, which we intend to lean on heavily, it is very possible that they will accept that and say, fine, we'll include it into our report, even though they didn't do it, as long as it was done according to core policies. And that's going to be on my responsibility to ensure that that gets done correctly. But at that time, that becomes the first chance we have to really communicate with the Corps and push for having them consider this revised LPP. There's one more chance that I'm going to give you, and I'll let me keep going on
Well,
that.
the reason I bring it up, because if you take a look at the timeline for the rate plan, they fall on the same line. So in other words, how are you going to are you going to go for the 100-year rate plan?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's the point I'm trying to make, is that we're ignoring the Corps anyway.
Well, we're not ignoring the Corps. The Corps has to go through their motions in order to get through.
But they're not. You're not going to get them off a 50-year.
It is possible that we do. We've already been, we spoke with Reed about this. We spoke with our lobbyists about this. It is a prudent strategy to pursue.
You have to
If
try.
we- What?
We have to try.
We have to
Yeah,
try.
but it seems like to me we're just kicking the can down the road. I mean, how long have we been doing this?
Well, but we're not wasting any time.
No, but how long have we been?
Oh, this project was reauthorized in 1996.
Okay.
Yeah, point made and point taken. But
Another
again,
question, Mr. Lawson.
Jay, explain to me the permit, a 1455 permit, is that what it's called? That allows us to build this project?
14, I'm not
I'm-
familiar with.
Am I missing the number might be wrong, but there's some permit that we have to get from the Corps,
Well, we,
regardless whether they financially
there's
support
408
this or not.
permits, there's
408.
404 permits,
Okay.
that all are permits that you end up having to get. The permit will not be an issue at all on this project. The permit, the Corps will give us the permits for what we're doing here.
So does that answer Mr. Kerrigan's question that if we still can get a permit and we still continue down this line? If they choose to support us or not, ultimately doesn't matter. We're going to continue down the line and build a 100-year flood project.
In the interest of time, I laid off on one response that I could give to Councilman Kerrigan, and that the response is they're going to prepare an EIS document, and that EIS document has a lot of value to us. We can take that document and use it for our own purposes. Therefore, if the Corps finishes their planning effort and they complete and get the record of decision and they get that EIS document, that is an element, a deliverable that we can take and build upon if we want to. So the way that the strategy is set up is the engineering is done either way. It has to be done either by the Corps or by us. If the Corps does it, they won't do it for a year from now, so let's do it now and get it over with. If we do it and we do it according to Corps policy, which that becomes my responsibility to ensure, we're in a position to be able to take that EIS that the Corps produces from their 50-year study and build upon that and convert that into a 100-year EIS that can then be used by us. So it's work that doesn't, we're not double counting anything, and we're not doubling up and wasting any money. And that's part of the strategy that makes this work the way it does.
So in essence, it's a dual track.
It is a dual track. And that's exactly that's the reason why we set it up this way, because we didn't want the community to be waiting anymore for a flood project and have somebody point at the Corps and say, well, they're not doing it. We're going to start doing the things that we as a community need to do if we build our own plan. And that's the reason why this is set up that way.
I have more questions. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make sure I fully understand the dual track and the non-wasted time and money in this thing. When we go to the public and we ask the public for a rate plan, we're going to go with them with a 100-year flood plan.
That's correct.
With all the assumptions that the Army Corps is going to go with a 100-year flood plan. They're going to fund a 100-year flood plan, and this is we're hunky-dory.
That's correct.
When looks to me that we're going to have our finance model in place before we even get a commitment from the Corps for a 100-year, much less a congressional approval.
That's correct.
So let's take worst-case scenario that we go to the public, we tell them it's going to be a 100-year flood plan, we want you to fund a 100-year flood plan, we're going to get X amount of dollars from the federal government to do it, and the Corps comes back and say, no, we're going to give you a 50-year flood plan, and we're going to give you this much money, are we going back to the taxpayers and say we screwed up here, or?
No, it's not going to be set up like we screwed up. It's going to be set up like we're going to provide a minimal 100-year plan. If the Corps builds the plan that we want them to build, the two plans are a little different. The one that we want the Corps to build is a better plan, and it's better for the community, and it gives us more benefits. But from a payment standpoint, we're going to ask the community to base a 100-year flood risk management project, but some of the niceties, the bells and whistles, may not be included in that project. So if we go back, if we get the Corps money, then we could conceivably either do one of two things: lower the fees, or we could build additional elements of the plan that are part of that Corps plan. So it still is not a, in my opinion, I wouldn't call it a mistake. It is a plan to adjust in 2 years, depending on where we are.
And I'll make sure I just heard you correctly, that the 50-year Corps proposed plan is better benefit, better efficiency.
No. But if we are successful in getting the Corps to accept our revised LPP, our 100-year plan, then that plan would be a better plan than we would have described as a rate plan.
Yeah, in this dual process, we're paying for the 100-year plan to be engineered,
Yes.
and the Corps is paying for the 50-year plan to be engineered.
Yes and no. Remember, we gave them $1.4 million that's going
So
towards that. But
we're paying for both plans.
in essence,
So we're paying $1.4 million for a 50-year plan that may or may not get accepted by, and then how much is our plan, 100-year plan costing us?
our plan, we're expecting about $5 million and expect it to be more than that.
So we're going to spend $5 million for a 100-year plan. We're going to spend $1.4 million for a 50-year plan. One of the two is going to get accepted. So minimum, we throw away $1.4 million.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. And that was the decision that the FMA made 2 months ago regarding whether or not to even keep the Corps engaged in the process, with the knowledge that $1.4 million is not a bad price to pay to get an EIS, a completed EIS.
Great bargain. Everybody, I'm sure, is just excited about that great deal.
I would love to.
You don't know how excited I am that, spending $1.4 million with taxpayers' money and getting a superb deal on an EIS.
Something we have to have.
It is something that we have to have. It is the
Not
reality of
wasting
the situation we have. And with respect to Councilman Lawson's request on our question on the permit, the EIS goes a long way to address those issues because it discusses and it logs and the impact of the project to the community, and that is critical.
Mr. Smith?
A couple months ago, back in February, this project was dead. The Corps spent $40 million studying this project. 42? And, the paperwork, the studies is 6-7 feet tall. So as a board, we decided they were out of money. They were not willing to spend any more money on our project. But to get the EIS, which we need, the board voted for $1.4 million to pay for that study so we can get it in time. Our whole goal is to get the EIS and to get the authorization for the 50-year project. Once we get that, we'll build a 100-year project. But without the authorization, the Corps will not put in for an authorization of 100-year. 50 years, all they're willing to go. And we've had this discussion, the same discussion, over and over again because it's hard to understand. But we do have to get the authorization so we can start on this project, and then we will build a 100-year protection for this area. And the Corps project now for 50 years is $400 million, $450 million.
$340 million, as we discussed this afternoon
Right.
in the
Right, and I think the AFB's moved up to December, hasn't it?
The AFB on this has changed. However, the interesting thing, as I built a lot of extra time into it, knowing that the Corps would, no matter what, I'm only about a week off of the final Chiefs report going to Congress. So at the end of the day, it's accurate, right there on that yellow and red diamond there. So
And
it says
it's
Chiefs report
interesting to
goes
see
Congress.
the schedule go backwards instead of,
Yeah,
further out.
it's because the Corps is so committed to an 18-month process. I would say all the questions that I've heard just in this brief presentation are all very, very logical, and it's part of the difficulty in being able to communicate the advancements that the FMA is making. At this point in time, I won't editorialize anymore.
Let me finish my
Oh,
comments.
sure.
The $1.4 million is not wasted money. We have to have this report. If this project stalls or stops right now, and we have a flood, which could happen how many times before we get this project built? Well, it'll cost us $1 billion in the industrial center alone. Those folks will not come back. In 1997, there was 30,000 jobs down there. Now there are 20,000. And if we flood again, there'll even be less. And that is Spark's economic engine in that area down there, so we have to protect it.
Mr. Schmidt?
Just to make sure I'm clarified, because when we talk about a 50-year engineered plan and an EIS, to me, that's two different things. So did we pay $1.4 million for the EIS, or we paid $1.4 million for the 50-year flood plan?
To respond, the Corps is developing two reports. Their GRR, which is the engineering decision document. It's the one that looks at all the costs, the benefits, and all that. And then the EIS. A Chiefs report is made up of both elements. So our 1.4 goes to a completion for the Chiefs report. So we get both the engineering decision document and the EIS.
So let's be fair with everybody here now. Be sure we tell everybody how much is that EIS portion of the $1.4 million, and how much of it is the actual engineering study to determine the cost of things.
Because of the fact that they're so interwoven, it would be almost impossible to break that number apart. And that's not done to dodge the answer. It's the fact that right now the Corps, in all the subsequent studies that the Corps has started, you only get one report. Because in all fairness, the information comes from both reports to make a complete Chiefs report. So
I think if we were business people out there looking at monitoring money that we own, coming out of our pocket, we would truly have an itemized statement of what services are going to be provided and what $1.4 million is going to cover. The taxpayers want to know. They should know where every single penny of their money is going to and why it's going there. I understand we need the EIS. We could have hired that to be done. We would know how much that cost. We sure, I hope, know how much the 100-year flood plan is going to cost us to have engineered. We know it's $5 to $6 million. I sure hope we've got that all figured out ahead of time. That's my problem with this project. And you asked me to get enthused about the Army Corps of Engineers coming on board to do an 18-month timeline. I'm 15 years into this thing. I can't get excited about somebody getting excited 15 years later to commit to 18 months to get something done and spend $42 million taxpayer money to go ahead and do it. I can't get excited. All I can do is ask my colleagues that we get our project together and we do our project for the city of Sparks. Because I don't see the value of getting excited for somebody, some agency that has continually let us down throughout this process. So I'm finished, so thank you. I'm sorry for that commentary, but it's just, you have to understand it. 15 years is a long time to be sitting here and ask us to get excited over something.
How much more you got, Jay?
probably another 5-6 minutes.
Let's move it along.
Okay. I will echo that, and I'm glad that you're passionate about it because it is critical that we have elected officials that care and are passionate about the project. So with that said, let's move to 2014 and look at what happens at the end of we adopt the rates. We start collecting those rates. We go immediately into a judicial review, and we're told that that's about a 24-month period. At the same time, we're saving and collecting the flood fees because we don't want to spend them until we have a successful ruling from the state Supreme Court on whether or not that works. But at the end of that period, in 2016, we now have collected fees of about $50 million, assuming we collect about $25 million per year. That $50 million could go to build projects such as the North Truckee Drain, start doing engineering. We're now in a position to be able to move out and start doing something. What is the Corps doing at that time? Well, what is the local engineering? The local engineering is suspended. We've used up all of our money. We modeled the cash flow. We no longer have any more money to be able to do much of the engineering that we'd like to do. But at this point in time, at least we have developed the information we needed. We know how much our project is going to cost us. There is no more speculation on it. We know definitively a plethora of information about what we need to do. And at that point in time, we can communicate with the Corps should we be able to. Now, the authorization process is that the Corps sends the completed Chiefs report to Congress. Congress takes that and at that time becomes a second opportunity where we can communicate with the Corps and be able to ask them to make this a project that they could recommend. Reed could be involved at that point in time because now remember the report is now in the hands of Congress. So Reed could actually include that through a congressional ad as an opportunity for a congressional alternative during the authorization process. At the end of that period comes this question. Now, should we continue with the Corps? If we continue with the Corps goes through a big, long appropriation. We sign the project partnership agreement, and the Corps starts designing. They could literally start building at the end of 2017. And that's what your chart on the pink line shows. You notice that we continue collecting fees. That all the arrows refer to after the decision point. If that doesn't work, if we decide not to go with the Corps, then we take the money that we have, we continue collecting fees. We also go into a bond strategy and deal with how we're going to sell bonds and where that's all going to come from. But we start a design contract, and we could actually begin construction the 1st of 2017.
Heard you correct there that 2016 is the soonest that the North Truckee Drain you see getting started for construction?
Yes. Unless, and I know that your deputy city manager for community services is in the audience here. It is the opportunity that we will be able to totally fund that project at one time. The flood project does not have the what is it, $30 million, $45, $50 million in order to be able to build the project completely. The only way that we will be able to build it now at this time is phase it, look for grants, look for cost-saving measures, and obviously hope that the fees take effect. But
see, that's the reason why I asked my first question, is available free cash flow. $2 to $4 million a year in available free cash flow will give me about $40+ million in bonds in today's market. We can do Truckee Drain tomorrow.
Certainly, if I could get 6 votes from my FMA, I would have no problem in taking that before the FMA.
Because I have a hard time, as someone who charged every one of the citizens' household apartments $5 a month for the last 5 years for the purpose of that Truckee Drain, to tell them and look them in the eye and say 2016, just as I would have a hard time as elected officials to start imposing rates in 2012 on somebody and saying maybe or maybe not in 2016, and we're going to have a project ready to go. They made a commitment of sales tax. They've been collecting sales tax since 1998. We did our share of the rates. You can't sit here and say in 2016 is the available time of construction. You need to take the taxpayer monies that they've been giving you, they continue to give you every single month, continue these fees keep going on, and produce a project. Produce a project that's going to be beneficial to and we have one. And I think that project needs to move forward as soon as possible. Thank you.
I know, look at Neil for this. We can start building this in March of next year. We are 90% plus the North Truckee Drain designed, and we can go ahead and start it in March. Is that true?
For the record, Neil Cruz, Deputy City Manager for Community Services. Yes, we are on target to have the design and bid package ready by the end of the calendar year for spring construction.
Okay, so to answer Mr. Smith's question, we are planning on moving forward with North Truckee Drain in March. We are in the appraisal process right now.
I just want want to make sure when we say we, the city council is involved in that, but from the flood point of view, they're not looking at that project or any funding of that project till 2016.
We have been collecting funds, and you're correct, for how many years?
5 years.
5 years.
January will be 5 years.
And that's the money we'll be using, plus the bond capability to build it, buy the property, and get it moving by March. When the flood project starts collecting fees, then they'll take responsibility to pay off the drains. That's the way.
And that is the nuts and the bolts in the JPA now.
Yeah, that comes in later.
I just want to make sure our citizens are very aware of that we're not waiting until 2016 to do this.
No, we're not. We'll be building it in March.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Okay, Jay,
I'm
Moving
wrapping
along,
up quick. Summary of the path benefits, the local path. We can construct it earlier, a shorter construction period if we do it ourselves. Core path, we get about $200 to $250 million of federal funding, and the Corps manages and designs the construction phases. And the North Truckee Drain, according to the flood project and our cash flow, begins at the same time in either case. So the pathway does not influence the turnover of money funding from the flood project to the city to build the project. Let's see, we modeled, I'm going to cut some of this out and just say, what we asked the board to do is to basically look at professional services so that we would have a complete, intimate understanding from a preliminary standpoint of what the project was going to be, that we were going to build. We need to change our budget to infuse money into professional services, and we need to take it out of our capital projects budget. What we intended on doing then, to do the rate plan, $300,000 for the rate plan, to do some study benefit analysis for the rate plan, and then about $5 million to do the revised LPP. And remember, these are related plans, but the projects are different, and so I split them up to allow two different engineering consultants to be able to handle it in order to spread the work around. We need some public outreach materials to be able to sell the new flood project, and we also need to start case preparation for judicial review. Capital projects, there's $1.5 million in Tracy still in there. We're going to bring the decision to the board this next the 13th of this month or in July as to whether or not they will continue with the Tracy project. $500,000 was going to go to the Virginia Street Bridge, and $7 million would go to the Virginia Street Bridge in FY14 and 15, which is prior to, it's the last remaining dollars that we have, and it would go to the Virginia Street Bridge project. Recommended, I'm the one that recommended that, and the reason why I recommended that is we get a complete bridge with the work, the money that the city of Reno is infused in it, and that's enough to build the project. And the bridge is falling down. They can't drive the buses over it at this time. North Truckee Drain wouldn't receive money until 2016. Hidden Valley home elevation, which is not only the Hidden Valley, the east side home elevation, we funded $1.8 million to get that started. The undesignated amount of $11.9 million goes to zero at that time. So we explained the reasons for making a revision to the LPP. We suggested that it should be 100-year. We outlined the process to follow. We explained new strategy to how we're going to interface with the Corps and to really identify those milestones. We identified two pathways going forward with and without the Corps. We introduced the need for significant local effort in the preliminary engineering standpoint. We need to be able to build our project if it's we that build it. If we build it, we have to be able to know what to do, so we need to be out in front of them. So we've proposed that. We explained the timing, or the critical timing of rates, outreach, and engineering. We introduced the implications of cash flow. So we sought, and this is the same slide you saw a little earlier, but what we asked the board to do is to approve the direction to proceed with revising the LPP, which they said yes to. Approval on the going forward strategy it's included in your timeline, which they said yes to. Direction to bring back the budget revisions, which again they agreed to, and the direction to bring back the professional service recommendations, which they agreed to. So they were able to accomplish all of that in a very short hour and a half, 2-hour meeting. This is a picture of the road to Mount Whitney. Obviously, there's not too many opportunities for detours. If you make a change, if you set a strategy, you need to stick with it, and that's what I have for you today. So,
Clarified in my mind. So the board has already said that if the Corps of Engineers goes for a 50-year plan, then we're going to reject that. Is that correct, including the money that goes along with it?
they didn't say it in those exact terms, but that's the result, because the result is we're going to revise the LPP to a 100-year project.
Right, right. But if the Corps sticks by their guns and says no to our new revised project, then we're going to, meaning the FMA is going to turn down the 50-year and the money that goes with it, so then it comes back to our hands, correct?
Fundamentally, that would be my recommendation. Okay. There are 2 other opportunities, so there's a total of 4 opportunities that we could interface with the Corps. Because they were so far out there, I didn't include them in the timeline because I certainly don't want to give a lot of hope and pay a lot of attention to them. But at that point in time, when we make that decision, those 2 other opportunities, if the first 2 have failed, will become obvious, evident, and we will either recommend that we do one or the other or neither. So,
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Reddy.
Wanted to say thank you for coming, and I just, I wouldn't have applied for your job. I mean, you come into a project that's been stalled for 15 years, and I've seen more forward motion since you've been involved. And so I just wanted to say the thank you, and to let you know that, we're going to ask tough questions because we are frustrated, of course. The city of Sparks has a lot riding on this, as does everybody else in our region. I thank you for clarifying the North Truckee Drain piece, because that's the #1 question that I get, which is what's happening to that money that I'm paying every month on my sewer bill. And I thank Ron Smith and the mayor for their leadership in moving that forward on our own third path, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly complex, and I think you did a nice job of trying to, bring some of that complexity down. But I want you to know that we're also rooting for you. I mean, we're going to have the tough questions, but I want you to know that we're rooting for you because it needs to be successful. And if you say that this is the right strategy and we have to stick to it, then how can we make sure that that's, because you keep saying we need to sell the plan. I don't think we need to sell the plan. Everybody I talk to wants a flood project. So I think we need to figure out how to take what you just did and get it into something that's a little bit more concise, that starting today, we can start talking to people about why this is the right strategy, not so much waiting until we get to the point where we're going out and trying to get a rate from folks. So whatever pre-work you can do on taking all of that and making something that we can help promote would be helpful.
That's a real good suggestion, and one of the things that I'm trying to do with taking the workshop that we did and condensing it down is to try to get it to the point that everybody gets the same information. Just because Councilman Smith and the mayor happen to be on our FMA board doesn't mean that they're any less or any more important than any other elected official. And so it's our viewpoint that all these elected officials, all of you guys, and with the city of Reno and also with Washoe County that have signed and approved the interlocal agreement, that you all hear this to start with, to understand what we've had to distill to begin with. And yes, we're going to, and that's why you see Mimi Fuji Strickler in the audience here. She is going to be our public outreach lead, and she's been doing that, but she now has a monumental mission to be able to basically show the strategy, give this information to the public and let them know what we're doing. We don't want to be standing. I don't want to be pointing and saying, well, I didn't do that at the time that I could have. So the strategy was set aside. Maybe a few wasted dollars, maybe not. But the notion is we'll be at a point down the road that we will be able to make a decision and move forward from that point.
There's a strategy. I don't know that that's been true for a while, and I appreciate that we've gotten there.
And one thing I need to remind you, Ron and I do think we're more important.
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe you as well.
Mr. Smith.
And I'd like to echo Councilman Ratty's comments. If Jay would stand up and take off his coat, you'd see his whip marks on the back of his. He stood through a lot, and in the last 6 months, we've been pretty dysfunctional as a group. We're starting to move forward, and it's complicated, and sometimes we're taking a step back to gain that step forward.
3 steps back.
3 steps back to move 1 step forward, and this is the toughest thing that I've ever done. And the staff, Mimi included, they worked their butts off over there, and we're going to get a project to protect this community from floods in the future, whether it's with the Corps or without the Corps. We will have a project. And I want to thank you for your efforts, Jay.
Well,
Thanks, Jay, appreciate it.
it's community service.
Anyone else? Okay, we're done. Thanks, Jay. Let's move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull a consent item? Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, I'm full. I have 5.7.
5.7. Okay, anyone else? Okay, looking for a motion? Mr. Schmidt?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve items 5.1 through 5.6 and 5.8 through 5.11.
Do you have a second?
Second?
Moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to approve 5.1 through 5.6 and 5.8 through 5.11. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. I'm told it works. Yeah, well,
Looks good.
let's see, what is this?
Aye. Try it again.
Wait a minute. What does this say right here, Mike?
Try voting one more time, please.
Okay.
We did.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. 5.7, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Technical problem.
Hi, Tracy. Just real quickly, what is the account number 603242? How does those funds, what are those funds?
Tracy Dominguez, Recreation, Parks and Recreation Director. They are the capital improvement. It's, hang on, am I on the right
And where are the
project?
taxes
Yes.
derived from that fund?
Chris? Sorry.
For the record, Chris Cobb, Capital Projects Manager. The funds for this project are within the funds in 1402 CIP. Those are general fund monies that are out of that area.
So, and this was included in our general fund budget, in our capital improvement budget for 95,000?
Yes, sir. This
for a
was part of
plan?
your approved capital improvement plan that you approved last year.
But this money can be used for salaries and benefits if needed to be.
I would believe so, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Looking
Thank
for a
you, Mr. Mayor.
motion? Looking for a motion, 5.7, Mr. Kerrigan.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Kerrigan, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 5.7. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
6.1 is appointment to the Regional Planning Commission. And the commissioners that are on there have served one term apiece, I believe, and all want to be reappointed. They would be Commissioners Tom Lean, Jackie Peterson, and Doug Voles. These will be the Sparks representatives to the Regional Planning Commission. Any questions? Mr. Smith.
I move to confirm the mayor's recommendation to reappoint Doug Voles to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission, also Jackie Peterson and Tom Lee.
Do you have a second? Ms. Ratty. It's been moved by Councilman Smith, second by Councilwoman Ratty to approve the agenda item as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, next is a consideration of the recommendation to appoint to the Civil Service Commission. These are reappointments also, Mr. Steve Burley and Mr. Louis Daria. And we have one opening that we have not filled yet, and we are in the process of going through the applications right now. And then to the Parks and Rec Commission, we have 3 reappointments, Angela Foose and Thomas Cornell. And those are my recommendations for Civil Service and Parks and Rec. Questions? Mr. Kerrigan.
I don't have a question. I was going to move to confirm the appointments recommended by the mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Kerrigan, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve the agenda items outlined by staff. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to 6.3, consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 3217 to augment the 2011-12 Rec and, well, it should be Parks and Rec District Fund budget of the City of Sparks. Welcome.
Thank you. Stacy Hammerling, Budget Administrator. It actually is the Rec and Parks District.
It is the Rec and Parks?
Yes, that's what it was named when it was created.
Okay. Just sounds funny to say
It
Rexon
does sound
Park.
funny, I know. That is the official name, though.
Okay.
So today is just a budget cleanup item. Community Services is completing a project, the Whittakin Park and Trails Neighborhood Parks Phase 3 project. You guys approved it on the fiscal 11 CIP. It wasn't, the bulk of it is being done this year. We need to augment this year's budget for that already approved amount. The funds are available to do so, and it's just a cleanup measure to make sure we don't have a budget violation in 12.
Questions for Stacy? If not, looking for a motion.
Motion approved.
Do you have a second? Moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve agenda item 6.3 as outlined. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Stacy. Okay, next is 6.4, consideration and possible approval to rescind the amendment to the interlocal government agreement for the Sparks Senior Citizen Center dated July 21st, 2011. Tracy Dominguez.
Tracy Dominguez Day.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Tracy Dominguez, Parks and Recreation Director. It's been about a year since we added this amendment to the existing interlocal agreement, and I wanted to come back with a little bit of an update and recommendation as to how to move forward, seeking your direction. Last year, we were asked to assist the Washoe County Senior Services to keep the doors open at the senior center, make sure they were open at 9 a.m. and properly secured at 5 p.m. each day, Monday through Friday. If you recall, we did provide an existing full-time staff member to relocate over to that facility, and we also brought on a part-time employee to assist at the counter in the afternoon shift while the Washoe County was still utilizing their volunteers in the morning. Overall, it's been difficult to try to provide more programming in the afternoon hours, and we don't feel that the demand has increased since we've been there for the facility to be open in the afternoons. Many days I look across the street and the parking lot is empty from 3 o'clock on. I'm not sure if you're also aware, this is difficult on our resources, and recently we lost another employee. So I am looking at reorganizing again to best meet our needs and those of the public between some of our other facilities. I do have Grady Tarbutton here from Washoe County and many seniors and residents that use the facility. We spoke to them on Thursday to let them know that this was coming up and about the possibility of this contract being amended again. I would like to recommend that we go back to the original agreement where the Washoe County Senior Services does the programming, all of the programming. They are in charge of the inside of the building. The city maintains the outside and the landscaping as in the past, and have Washoe County program the facility from 9 to 1.
Questions for Tracy? Grady, do you have anything you'd like to say, or and then I have some public comment? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Arati.
I think my question was probably going to be for Grady anyway, so.
Okay, good. See, I was.
But don't go anywhere.
I'm getting to
I'm not going
know where you're
anywhere.
coming from.
Yeah.
It's kind of scaring me.
For the record, Grady Tarbutton, Director of Washoe County Senior Services. I'd like to thank the City of Sparks for this effort we've made over the past 2 years to keep the center open. What the county is willing to do is to ensure that the facility is open from 9 to 1. We can guarantee at the minimum that the meal site will operate, and we're looking for some additional funds so we can have a part-time county employee there in the mornings. So the building will be open for that time period. So I completely understand the challenges that Parks and Recreation faces. These are the same challenges that Washoe County has had over the past 2 years trying to keep the facility staffed. So I thank you for your effort.
Okay, questions? Ms. Ratty?
So, having followed this for a while, we've been through a number of iterations trying to figure out how to keep this facility open, and we've tried to be very creative and very trying budget times, and so we went through well, maybe we can do it with volunteers, and maybe we can do it with a number of different things. I guess my question is I always viewed this current arrangement as a Band-Aid that was just to get us through until we could find a more permanent solution. I mean, I think we went into this with eyes wide open that having it programmed by two separate agencies was going to be confusing and is not the ideal situation. But it doesn't sound to me really like there's been any progress towards something that could be more sustainable long term. One of the things that I recall is that the county had some risk management challenges around it being a volunteer-driven facility. And, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, well, if we're able to have volunteer fire departments, it seems to me like we should be able to have a volunteer-driven senior center. So has there been any progress on some of the other creative solutions? Because I think, again, we knew going into this that this would be difficult. It probably wouldn't be something we could do forever, but at least it could hold us over until something else could be looked at. So have we looked at anything else?
We felt we spent a good year on working with the volunteers, and we kept coming up with the same challenge of, was the building secure at the end of the day? And that's a bottom line condition both for the city and for the county. We felt we could not do that without paid staff. The staff just need to be on site. And again, we're looking for $16,000 in the county budget to make sure that remains open 9 to 1, and we believe we can do that. At the present moment, I don't know of any other options that we may want to consider. Certainly the county is willing to consider anything to keep it open as much as possible.
Well, I think we need to go back. I mean, if the options are just it's only going to be open from 9 to 1, and it sounds to me like that's not even secure. Is that what you're saying?
That will be secure.
That's secure. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I really would like to ask the county to take another look at a volunteer-driven operation because, again, we've been accomplishing amazing things throughout our communities with volunteers, and I think perhaps part of the challenge is that the volunteers also came from the user base, and you know, maybe we need to have a group of volunteers that's job is really just to take care of the facility, that are neutral, and that's their job, is just to take care of the facility, because I think the volunteers, we've always had the users being the volunteers running the programming, and that has been a role that they have done a stellar job at, keeping that facility programmed for years and years and years and years. It's not like the county was running classes there, things along those lines. It's always been the users who've been running the classes. And my perception is it takes everything that they've got to do the great programming that they're doing, and that the facility issues was never a good match for the volunteers that are also the users. It was just too much to ask. But I don't know that we ever really pursued a group of volunteers who would step up just to make sure that the basic opening and closing of the facilities would be taken care of. And again, we've got volunteers fighting fires, we've got volunteers doing all kinds of things. I just have faith that it can be done, so I'd like to see another crack at that on the part of the county.
We can take another look at that.
Okay.
Mr. Kerrigan.
So are you saying that Washoe County has the money, or you're looking for the money?
It would come out of the Senior Services Fund balance, to be quite
Okay.
honest, to keep it open.
So you are going to keep it open?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
From 9
From
to
9
1.
to 1.
Any other questions? Okay, I do have, that's all right, I'll get to you.
I'd just like to add
go ahead.
also that Grady and I continue to work together for the programming that does overlap 1 o'clock or might end at 2 or 3, that they have found space to accommodate those programs elsewhere. And we continue to look at our own facilities as well for opportunities.
Okay, I have people that want to speak under public comment. First, I have Shirley Hendricks. Come on down, Shirley, you have 3 minutes. Hey, Linda, you can have this.
Stand.
Sure, if you'd like.
it's hard for me to get up, and it takes a little bit longer. Anyway, I want to thank you for your support for the last year, and I hope you will continue and consider it very much. What some people don't realize is that we have quite a few activities that go on in the afternoon from 1 o'clock on. We have our exercise group that goes from 1 to 2, 3 days a week. We also have our craft people that are there after 4 till 4 o'clock on some days that are painting oil or whatever they do. I'm not a crafter. And that we have actually 16 activities per week. And this is what goes on after 1 o'clock. And if you shut down at 1 o'clock, where are those people going to go? They don't want to go to Reno. They live in Sparks. They want to be in Sparks. It's like trying to get the police to come over and get us all together. I'm not a good speaker, so excuse me, but I do find that maybe there's some way we can work out. There's a gal that's working right there now. She is being paid by ARP, and she mans the desk from 9 until I think it's 1 o'clock. She said she would work all day from 9 until 4 o'clock for the same pay of this $16,000 for a year. Now that's pretty good volunteer service. And I assume that she's on her word. She loves the place. The people love her. She gets in and helps, and she does everything that she just fills in for anything you need. Need coffee, she's pouring coffee. If you need service for the handicapped, she's serving them their lunch. She's always there. She's very helpful. And I hate to see you take away the exercise classes. We have a pulmonary class that goes from 2 to 3, 3:30. And that's important for these people. I mean, you guys are all young. I'm old. Anyway, I'll let my friend Donna have the next floor. I hope you can reconsider.
Thanks, Shirley. And now we have Donna Havelka.
I'm not as organized as Shirley, but I just want to say I believe everything she is saying. It's really important for these people at Senior Center. We are quite different than the Reno Center. We are like a family at the Sparks Senior Center. Many of the people there are very elderly, and they come in by access bus, and I don't know what time they are picked up. But I'm thinking myself, if we could go at least until 4 o'clock, rather than even 5 o'clock, that might even work for us, if at all possible. We have so many wonderful groups in the afternoon. Number one is the exercise group. That's keeping all these gals that you're probably looking at in the back here. They really did show up today. They are keeping them healthy. They do things I can't even attend that class because of my physical disabilities. But I hope you will look at this, that we can keep it open from 9 until 4. I think that would be a great help. So anything that anybody can do would just be a great idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, ladies. Now we have Don McMillan.
Well, yeah, I'm Don McMillan, and I have, I guess you could say, recently become a senior citizen, so it gets me all involved in this. But from what I'm hearing from the director of Sparks Recreation and so forth is that the only problem is securing the building at the end of the day, whatever time that is. That's where the problem comes in. It sounds like there would be plenty of volunteers to work the afternoon, whether it's until 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. It's just that apparently they've had a problem in securing the building at the end of the day. In other words, I suppose locking it up and whatever. And that problem seems like it could be overcome without just closing it down 4 hours earlier. And I just kind of wanted to point that out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak? Come on down, ma'am.
my husband and I.
Could you give us your name for the record, ma'am?
Oh, Frances Lynette Morton. Okay. We play bridge and we were there twice a week. And we would come back and help Walk Out or do anything to keep the senior center going. The people that are there are so good. It is a family. I hope you understand that a lot of us just can't make it without going there. Okay? I'm sorry I cried.
It's all right. It's about all right. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's bring it back. Anything else? Tracy? Questions? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to follow up with Mr. McMillan's question. He's saying that the only issue is the closing or the lockup of the building, but I'm seeing that as something different here, that the way I read this is that 2 years ago, we helped subsidize that building with employees there in the afternoon so it could stay open from 9 to 5 because the county was shutting it down in the afternoon. They couldn't afford to run it. And so all we're doing here is going back and saying the county has to, they've had 2 years, they haven't found the money, we're asking them to go back and do their job, run the building 9 to 5, but they can't run the building still. They haven't found the money to run the building. So now they're going to keep it from 9 to 1. It's just not that we have trouble closing it. It's just that we're using our employees for the whole afternoon shift right now, which was done in a temporary stopgap measure 2 years ago.
Correct. And I think that also it was a joint agreement between the county and the city that this was a big liability to be running the facility with volunteers. It wasn't acceptable, and that's why we came in to assist with the staff. But it was a liability. It was to both run the facility and secure the facility with volunteers.
I just want to make sure clear that this,
You're right.
though this building is owned by the city of Sparks, it's always been functional by Washoe County.
Correct.
We've used our money to build the facility, so it's here. The county has always funded everything interior of that building to go ahead and be done until 2 years ago when we started participating.
Correct. We got involved last year, actually. This time last year is when we put staff over there.
And I'll go back, to my soapbox when it comes to the formation of taxes and how taxes are derived and how taxes are distributed. All homeowners, anybody living in the city of Sparks is paying Washoe County taxes. They actually pay almost as much to the county as they do the city. So their taxes are paying for this facility to be open. It's up to the county management board to decide how they spend that taxpayer dollars to go ahead and keep it open. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Ratty?
I did want to make sure that we clarified, we've only been in there for a year.
Yes.
With financial resources and stuff.
Correct.
I'm a little confused with the difference between the staff's perception that there's nobody there in the afternoon and the audience's perception that it's active in the afternoon. Is there any way to clarify that?
I don't know if I do have staff here. Would you like to come down?
Don't just wave, Tanya, just come on down.
Obviously rely heavily on our staff, and Tanya Ramachetti has her office over there, and I've been relying on Tanya and Shauna's information based on the activities going on in that facility.
So, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So the question, the statement in the staff report is that there's not much activity going on in the afternoon in the facility, but the statements from the audience have been not necessarily on the same page, so I wanted to see if there's...
They have activities in the
Tanya,
afternoon.
give us your name for the record.
Tanya Ramachetti, Recreation Specialist, Sparks Parks and Rec. As programming from the city of Sparks, we don't have any of the programming in the afternoon because it's too hard to schedule because of the timeline that they currently have for the county programs. So we've offered a couple clinics and some classes, but there's no interest because they'd be running anywhere from 4 o'clock on, so I haven't been able to put anything in there. The county's classes, on the other hand, it just depends on the day. There's card games that go until 4, but then on another specific day, maybe a Wednesday, it's done by 2. I mean, it just depends on what day it is and what activity's scheduled.
It's inconsistent.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify that too, and this might be Grady. Programs by the county are actually programs run by the volunteers,
Right.
by the actual program
Each-
participants themselves, right?
Right.
So we only call them programs by
Right.
the county because it's been a county-run facility for years and years and years.
Right, so if
But
there's
the-
a card game or exercise group that is run by normally a
Art
participant,
class,
right,
you
who
name
is
it.
in taking that class.
There's been yoga, there's been
Right.
all kinds of things over there. And I just want to make that really clear because I really respect what the participants have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
It has never been, to my knowledge, or at least since I've been involved, programmed by anyone except for the participants themselves. And it's a very informal system. There's not a lot of registration that goes along. There's not a lot of bureaucracy, frankly. It is, they put on classes for themselves.
Correct.
I mean, that's the part that I think is so heartbreaking for me and has been from the beginning. And I just want to, again, say, our Parks and Rec department is stretched so thin, and I know you all know this in the audience, and they are doing a million things for every important, from preschool kids to after-school program kids to all those people who want to play softball to all the special events that we want to do. It's a very small group of hardworking, caring people who are trying to make it work in every place. And so I really appreciate that you've stepped up for the last year to try to do this. What I'm getting stuck on is, so the programming didn't grow, but it is still the programming that it's always been, which is the programming that they do for themselves.
Correct.
So I get stuck back on this. If we can open the building and close the building, it's been a pretty self-sufficient place for decades, right? I mean, we're talking, that's how it's worked for as long as that building has been open. So that's the part that I always get stuck on, and I'm right with the gentleman's comments of why can't we get past this risk management issue? And I know this is square in the county's lap, and open the doors. I mean, and is it the city that's holding it up too? I know we had some challenges with some personalities with the RSVP volunteers and one or two participants. I know that that's real, but why can't we get there?
If I recall correctly, it was a liability concern to have volunteers running the facility. That's why we opted to put a part-time employee in the building for supervision and for securing the building at the proper time.
And we have a full-time employee that's there.
When she can.
When she can.
She's not there all the time.
So from 9 to 1, is it just the RSVP person now?
Correct, AARP.
AARP?
Yes.
So if that's working from 9 to 1, why can't it work from 1 to 5, Grady? And Mr. Tarbudden, sorry. Because
That
right
I
now,
don't
it sounds to me like we have a paid volunteer in the office unsupervised, because we're not guaranteeing.
No, there's not a
President.
guarantee that we are there from 9 to 1. Tanya has to check on 15 other sites with before-school programming.
So we're doing it now from 9 to 1, why can't we do it from 1 to 5?
The difficulty is not, for the record, Grady Tarbutton, Director of Washoe County Senior Services. The difficulty is overseeing the classes and knowing that at the end of the day that the building is going to be closed. It happened, quite honestly, just simply too many times, even though people who are running the classes were reminded that the building needed to be closed and locked when they left for the day.
But is it the
And-
RSVP's person in the morning's job to open the building?
The building is open from 9 to 1. Let me back up just a little bit more. 2 years ago, Washoe County had 4 employees over there. And because of budget cuts,
I remember.
I mean, that
Reception
everybody
was
knows about.
centralized, they all went away.
it's 43 down to 27 employees. Every county department, every city department has had to deal with similar things. We believed that we could use volunteers to keep the building open. But for whatever reason, we kept running into the same problem over and over again. The agreement with the city that is in force right now was to have the city provide the staff to make sure the building was secure, open at the beginning of the day, secure at the end, and then any issues that were need to be dealt with during the day were dealt with in one way or the other. The county has an AARP staff person there. To be quite honest, you said it yourself, this is kind of patched together. AARP wants that person to be supervised on site. The county simply cannot do that. So we have been able to cobble it together, but that person can really not fully enforce the county's requirements to make sure the classes run properly answer some of the questions that the seniors may have. That person leaves at 1 o'clock. So from 1 to 5, we're totally dependent upon the city staff who have been there for the past year.
Well, right now, from 9 to 1, you're totally dependent on that RSVP volunteer?
It's there's
Sorry,
AARP
AARP volunteer.
And then there's a number of RSVP volunteers that run some of the classes. We've revised our agreement, by the way, with our volunteers that we're going to implement that changes some of the expectations of those volunteers and increases those expectations. And we're hoping that that can help deal with some of those conflicts that you also referred to. I believe we are making progress on this, but it is just a very difficult circumstance.
So it sounds like it's the requirements of AARP
that they're waiving for the morning right now from 9 to 1. I mean, that's just the fact, right?
Say again?
That they are waiving those requirements right now from 9 to 1.
Yes, they are.
And so will they waive those requirements from 1 to 5 or 1 to 4, which sounds like it would be acceptable?
Would AARP waive those? No, they would not. We've sought a second position there. They are subject to, these are federal funds that pay for these positions. And we've gone from 17 hours to 25 hours to 18 hours. It changes every couple of months. We've asked for a second position. We have not been provided it. In fact, we've been told if this person leaves, that we're likely to lose this position as well.
And if
it's fragile. It's fragile.
And so if that happens, then it would close.
Yeah. Well, we have a contractor there that runs the meal site. We have Valley Services as our subcontractor. And they have responsibilities under their contract with us to keep the building open while they're serving the meal and make sure the program is run. So they can manage that from 9 to 1, but they can't manage the classes. I know it sounds very complicated, but it's the conditions we're trying to operate on.
Right. Well, we're holding it together with baling wire and duct tape. I mean,
that's right.
That's clear and it has been clear to everybody from a while. And I think the purpose of that was to hope that eventually this economy would turn around and we would figure out how to make seniors our priority. I think everybody, well, maybe not, we've encouraged from this body that we go after a 2-cent raise in sales tax for seniors. If
Right.
that were to go through, would that be one of your priorities in the budget?
Yes. The material you presented, and we'll see on July 10th, includes staffing for Sparks Senior Center.
Thank you.
And also, in the spirit of cooperation, we were giving the county 3 months to make this transition. It wasn't to be effective immediately. So my recommendation was October 1
So we've got a little more time.
a little bit.
Questions, Mr. Smith?
You know, I think it's important to note that we are not voting to close the senior citizen at 1 o'clock. We're voting to turn it back to the county. And I think that the Parks and Rec Department has stood up. And they've done their best to staff it, and you've lost another person. It becomes not feasible for us to continue to do this. So we're not voting to shut it down. We're just voting to turn it back over to the county. And then and I didn't realize that you gave them a 3-month period. I think that's very helpful. And you know, every department, every program we have has suffered because of the economy and our cutbacks. So it's unfortunate, but remember, we're not voting to shut it down. We're voting to turn it back to the county. Thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Julie asked my first question about, you know, staff is saying there's not much going on, and that doesn't seem to be the case. What are you looking for? If you don't pay for anything over there, what's the $16,000 you're looking for? I mean, AARP pays for the person that's over there, correct? So what's the budget from this county on the senior center?
For the record, Grady Tarbetton, the $16,000 would be to hire a part-time county employee that we could direct.
Oh, okay. So then you're going to keep it open until. Oh, so you want to get rid of the AARP and have a.
No, they will stay there as well. But
all right, I'm confused then.
The difficulty we've had is the ability to direct the employees that are there. The AARP staff, we have
What are they running amok over there or what? I mean,
no,
I don't understand. You know, if you have an AARP volunteer, why do you need to supervise it or supervise one person? Obviously, it's been working, and I know what Julia said is absolutely right. We're keeping this thing together with duct tape and bailey wire, but I haven't had any complaints about some AARP volunteer going out off the deep end. But what I'm saying is, what are you trying to do with the 16,000? I'm just trying to keep this thing up until 4 o'clock. How do we do that? I guess that's my question.
Oh, okay, you want to, all right.
Yeah, I mean, what can the city of Sparks do to help you? If you don't have the money, we're putting in 12,000. You know, do we need to put some money in this thing to keep it open? What do we need to do?
You wanted to keep it open 9 to 4.
Yeah, what do we need to do to keep it open from 9 to 4? Tell me right now, and we'll see if we can do it.
Let me think. I think what I would like to do is sit down with Tracy and perhaps try to come up with a different strategy, and using some county money, perhaps some city money to make it work.
Okay, I agree. That's kind of where I was hoping you would go with that. Because, you know, here's the thing, and Ron said we're turning it back over to the county, but that still doesn't help us. Okay, I mean, we still have seniors that are not going to be going to the senior center, whether we give it back to the county. I just want to find a solution. So if you need some time to find a solution, then I'm willing to give you that time to talk with Tracy and decide what we need. And if it's just money, we'll come up with some money. All right? Because I can tell you right now, well, I'm not going to go there, but I know what I'd rather spend it on than not spend it on. Does that make sense? Well, I was thinking that somebody else is looking for that money, and I'd rather give it to the seniors. Because all of us here have made a commitment to go, you know, ask the voters if they want to, you know, do the 2-cent tax override. We've already committed to that. And so I think we should, I mean, how much time do you need to work it out?
Well, I think actually one of our possible solutions was this, and we have discussed it slightly, and just and see if it would be acceptable to provide some funding for the afternoon hours and still have it all be the county's responsibility, because there has been the confusion.
You know what,
of
Tracy,
two
that's fine with
entities.
me. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, but if we need to kick in some bucks to do that, that's
Okay.
fine. I'm willing to look at that.
Yeah, is it just
Okay.
another $16,000 if we gave you $16,000?
Yeah.
It's the
does that make up the
12.5
difference?
that we've been
If it's our
spending.
12.5, we've already committed that. If that's what it takes to keep this,
Now it's not a 40 or
yeah, well,
it's
that's what-
32, it goes up to $60,000 with benefits.
yeah.
Well, one thing we haven't discussed is perhaps the county could be paying the city. Maybe that $16,000 goes to the city instead of the money coming from the city to the county. But again, that's something we could discuss.
Whose employee would they be?
Mr. Lawson, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to address several issues here. I fundamentally have a problem. In essence, the city of Sparks and all of our people are paying twice for the senior center if we kick in the money. I was the one who suggested we kick in the money last year, however, to do the stopgap. But as we've found over the last year, and I've lived this pretty intimately with several phone calls between Grady and Tracy and several meetings, it just doesn't work when you have two entities trying to run the same facility. So it needs to be all or nothing. And that's why it was my suggestion that it goes all back to the county. I do have an issue with the money, but I can get over that because I would rather have them someplace to go than not to go, because then they will be running amok, Mike. Watch out. I've seen some of you. And let me just point out, let me clear this up, because I have a very vivid memory on why the volunteer program didn't work. It was the county risk manager who said that the risk was too great to have volunteers, and they could not continue with that program, because if one of you did, you know, it was acting as closing the facility, for example, and some group of teenagers go in there and beat you up, the county's then at risk for it. You know, so you would then be, in essence, a county employee. So there's millions and millions of dollars on the hook there for the volunteer program. I understand that part from the county's aspect also. But the big part has been the issues between Sparks trying to I mean, some people think Sparks is in control, some people think Washoe County is in control, so it's not been very cohesive over there in this aspect. So I agree with you 100%, Grady. It needs to be one entity. Let's just move down the road. And I'll go along with if we got to kick in some money on this side. But once again, keep in mind, and it's very nice of that lady from ARP to volunteer to go 9 to 4. However, then she becomes a full-time employee. Then she gets all the benefits that go along with it. And now it's not a $16,000 a year job. It's a $60,000 or $55,000 a year job. So there's the slippery slopes that we just keep winding over here that are, it puts us in a rock and a hard place. So my thought is to keep the thing open as long as we can, and let's work through it for the next few months. But we got to have a more permanent solution that the county needs to run it. So your issue, folks, is not really with City of Sparks, because all we do is lease them the building for, I think, $1 a year. So that's all our real responsibility is. We keep the outside looking nice. They're responsible for everything on the inside in the programming. So it's that crossover kind of is not working for us one bit. And trust me, our ladies in Parks and Rec, they work so hard. Tanya and Sean, I mean, you guys are the best. And I really know you guys gave 150% to make this work, and they really did try hard for you guys. So once again, we'll just move down the road here. We got till October 1st, but I think we should discuss what Sparks could do is kicking in some money to the county. I don't want to get involved in employing anybody that's working over there. I want this to be clean, and, you know, it's your program. And to reiterate, too, we did send a resolution to the county asking them to put this on the ballot for the extra 2 cents for seniors. And I'm still firmly behind that 100%. I want to also let you know that if the county doesn't do it, you have until July 16th to gather the necessary signatures to put it on there yourself. And I believe it's 7,500 signatures, but I'm still getting those answers cleared up. But if the county doesn't put this measure on the ballot, the people, you people, still have the opportunity to do it. And just ask the citizens if they're willing to pay it. I think most of the people I've talked to think they're willing to pay the extra 2 cents. And however, we got to do it. We know we have a bunch of baby boomers going to come through this system. I've lived at the tail end of the baby boomer generation my whole life. So
And you're
watched,
still on it under this council, too.
well, I've watched the big bubble come through, and things change, you know, as you go through the system. So I'm really, I'm glad you showed up. Thank you very much, and we'll just see what we can do to work this out in the future.
I'm booming as we speak, so. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Julie's line of questioning because I see a different picture than what I was painted a year ago on the county's involvement in this, and it's the only staff person per se that you have at the senior center for the City of Sparks right now is a paid-for staff person by AARP. You're using federal grants and stuff through AARP to do that and to have that person there. You don't have a paid staff person from Washoe County there. Who unlocks the building?
Currently, right now, city staff unlock the doors.
So we have to unlock and lock every day the building. Okay. Outside of AARP's money, what exactly, how much does the county put into this center every year from general fund taxpayer money for that?
I don't believe I have that right in front of me.
Any guesses?
Tracy, I believe, has the report.
Because I'm down. Well, the food is program is supported by the state. That comes through the
Right.
funds through the
All
state.
of our programs are subsidized.
So right now, about the
by
only
federal
expenses
grants.
I'm seeing you're having is electric, water, gas, and some maintenance aside if you have some.
Right, that's right. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I know, that, like you said, the meal program is also run by the county. Also, about of all the clients that Washoe County serves, about 20% of them are Sparks residents. So
The way I'm seeing it is that, you know, there's a 1% property tax you get out there right now to support the senior center, right? 1%?
Yeah.
1 cent, excuse me, 1 cent property tax raises $250,000 a year?
I don't know what it would be.
No,
for the
I'm
city.
just, countywide.
Countywide, 1.2 million.
1.2 million. And 20% of the seniors, 25% of the property is located in City of Sparks, and we get about $20,000 a year back out of that?
Oh, no, that doesn't include the cost of the other services we provide, senior law project, case management, home-delivered meals.
I understand it. You know, a lot of those are grant-funded. Your delivery meals are grant-funded. I know a lot of that stuff. I'm looking for direct cost from the general fund budget that goes in to support the senior center. And I'm coming up with about $20,000, depending upon how much we spend a month on the electric bill on over there. I'm seeing $1.2 million come in off property taxes, and I'm not seeing that money being turned back to the citizens of Sparks. And this is the whole issue that I have, is there is no accountability in the tax system for these taxpayers that live in the city of Sparks who pay their property taxes. 1/3 of their property tax bills every year go to the county. And we're back here at this table trying to subsidize that with other taxpayer money because the flow of money is not being done properly. If there's $1.2 million that's coming in on that 1 cent tax, I think there should be 20% of that coming to this senior center to go ahead and help support it. At least the amount to hire somebody to go ahead and support the center. I understand all these other projects are important, but I also know there's a lot of things in the chain of, grants and things from the state to go ahead and pay for all that stuff. That's not all coming out of the 1 cent property tax for it.
No.
So I think the issue here to me is the city of Sparks, once again, the residents of the city of Sparks are paying their fair taxes and not receiving their fair share of services. And I think that needs to be addressed before we continue going and saying, let's go ahead and continue subsidizing this thing.
We're talking about beating up on Grady here. It's not your call, is it? It's the county commission that approves your budget. So it's really not up to you what goes into the budget, is it? When it's final, it's said and done, it's the county commission that passes your budget.
No, that's true.
Yeah, so go ahead, Tracy.
Tracy Dominguez for the record. I just want to state, I can pull up last year's staff report when we were before you. It does have some numbers in there that the county had provided, Grady provided. I just don't know how much of those numbers, as far as their contribution to the center, came from general fund. So those were provided. I just don't know.
That's where I'm now very concerned, because I felt that the county was putting money in for employees that they needed, that they were funding that between 9 and 1, and that's not the case. That's being done with federal dollars going through AARP. There is no very, very little money being drafted in the budget that's submitted to Washoe County Board of Commissioners that is funding this senior center. Very little money.
We have, go ahead.
Just to be fair to the Washoe County Commission, it's about 2.2 million, I think, that comes from the ad valorem tax.
1.2 million.
1.2.
And 230,000 from county general funds.
And that's the 230,000 is funded from the Washoe County's general fund budget to senior service. So they are putting general fund money into senior services in addition to the ad valorem tax to keep the program where it is.
Right.
But I guess a good comparison of that is we want to go and do is what do you fund the Reno City's senior center with? How much funding goes over there?
Nothing. You mean in the one at 9th and Sutro, where our administrative center is?
No, it doesn't.
Or do you mean Neal
No,
Road?
Neal Road, or there's two.
There's two others, Reno.
Neal Road, we don't put anything into Neal Road. It's the city actually there has the staffing.
Right.
Our administrative building and where all our services are is at 9th and Sutro.
And the other City of Reno building over on Evans, or I'm not sure what's.
That's 9th and Sutro.
9th and Sutro is our main administrative building for senior services. It's our biggest center, yes.
They have one over by UNR.
That's it.
I believe it's owned by the county. County
It's at the
complex.
county complex.
The end of the complex. There's a big.
It's in the same parking lot.
But there's another Reno City's
Well, let me
senior
back
center.
up. We have 8 congregate meal sites in Washoe County. Several of them are in senior housing complexes like Sierra Manor.
Correct.
We have a center at Neal Road, which is owned and built by the city and operated by the city. We have a nutrition program there, pretty comparable to the one that we have at Sparks. And that's all that we put into that building is that the staffing for that, which is, as you said, mostly, well, at least partially, federal funds. Most of the administrative costs, for example, overhead, the equipment that we use for home-delivered meals. We have 7 vehicles that we deliver to 450 people. That's where the county general fund goes. And it also goes as match to the federal dollars. There's mandatory matches for that. For example, the state reimburses us $2.20 per meal, but our subcontractor charges $3.70 per meal, not counting gasoline, the equipment, some of the administrative costs. So that's how we use our ad valorem funds, is to leverage all these additional resources that bring into services to everybody in Washoe County. And as I said before, 20% of the people that get services from Washoe County Senior Services are Sparks residents. It's not just the senior center that gets a benefit from the senior services.
Okay, the city attorney has told me we're a little far off the
Off track.
agendized item, so we need to get it back to what we're talking about. So, Mr. Kerrigan, do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm going to make a motion to table this until October, okay, and that'll give you guys a chance to talk.
All right.
And I think it should be run by Washoe County, but give us a number on what it'll take. They'll keep it open until about 4 o'clock. That would be my motion.
Do you have a second? Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Kerrigan, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty. Questions, Mr. Lawson?
I just would ask Mike if we bring it back in September instead of October.
Is that enough time?
Because we're already agreed to go to October 1.
Okay, that's fine.
September.
And if you get it done faster, bring it. Just let us know if it's done faster, because we can always pull it off the table at any of our meetings.
Okay, we can do that.
Any other questions? Everybody understand the motion? You got it, Linda? I got it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, passes 4-1. Grady, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it, and thanks all you folks for coming. We're working really hard to keep this thing open. I think there's been some great suggestions here today, whether they're legal suggestions, Mr. Attorney, or not, remains to be seen. But we were so far off the agenda, he left the room. So anyway, we're desperately trying to help you folks. Believe me, this council is very supportive of what you want to do. So we're going to work a little harder and see what we can do. Thanks, Grady.
Thank you.
Go ahead. One comment, Ms. Ratty.
The long-term solution is the 2 cents on the ballot, and so I would encourage folks to stay involved with that conversation and to turn out at the joint meeting and to turn out at county commission meetings and Reno City Council meetings where it's considered, because it really is the long-term solution. Even I think, I don't know that we made this clear, but my suspicion would be, even if we come up with the money to fund it for a short period of time, it'll still be a short-term solution. We'll always be looking for the county to take it back over.
Yep.
And the long-term solution is to get more money into the budget.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Well, Julia stole my thunder, so I'll shut up.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
A long way to table, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to 6.5, review, discussion, and possible adoption of criteria for the city sponsorship of amendments to the City of Sparks Master Plan. Mr. Armando Ornelas. Good job there, Arms.
Mayor Martini, members of the City Council, I'm Armando Ornelas, the city planner. The process of amending the city's master plan can be either initiated by the city through city sponsorship, or alternatively a property owner can apply to amend the master plan, and that involves a fee of $2,500. This agenda item asks the City Council to approve criteria that would guide city staff and the Sparks Planning Commission in deciding when city sponsorship of a proposed amendment to the Sparks Master Plan is appropriate. We're proposing that city sponsorship of a proposed master plan amendment would be appropriate when one or more of the following circumstances apply. One, the proposed amendment involves multiple parcels and property owners. In a case like that, it may be that there's no single property owner that is appropriate, is the appropriate applicant. Because it involves multiple parcels, it tends to be more complex, and frankly, there may be property owners within that area that aren't necessarily looking for the amendment. So that would be one instance where we would propose that city sponsorship is appropriate. A second proposed criterion would be when there are text changes. A text change differs from basically a change to the land use map. When you're amending the land use plan, typically the property owner is looking for that amendment to change the master plan designation on their property. In those cases, it's certainly appropriate for the property owner to be the applicant. In cases where it's a text amendment, typically it's not going to involve, or it's not going to apply to a single property. It may apply to lots of different properties across the city, and again, that would be a case where we believe it would be appropriate for city sponsorship. 3, when a change is proposed to an area plan, we don't have many area plans left. We have a couple. The one that was most recently approved was for that area west of Pyramid. But when a change is proposed to an area plan, typically the area plan, at least the older ones, were originated by the city, and they affect multiple property owners. And then 4th, at the request of the city council. So again, that's the staff recommendation, that the city council will approve these criteria, and that concludes my presentation.
Questions for Mr. Ornelas? Mr. Lawson?
Armando, just a clarification, at the request of the city council, that means the whole city council or any council member?
Well, typically, I would say that would be analogous to when, when we do zoning code changes. It's initiated by the city council as a whole, as a body, and then, then staff goes forward with that direction. That would be the way it's typically done with a zone change. So I would suggest to you that would be the case here as well.
Just clarifying.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Armando, just walk me through the process. Somebody goes on out and does a master plan for their property. They sell off different pieces of property to folks. Now, these folks aren't happy with what they bought, so they come back and say, we want to change the master plan for that. Because these things have been sold off under the original plan, the city now gets the privilege of picking up the cost of that master plan amendment.
Well, the master plan is the city's master plan. If you have a plan development, that's a different, a different animal, if you will. In those cases, you have both the master plan designations that apply to the parcels within that, and typically that would be PD. So the master plan amendment, there would be the master plan layer, and then there would be the zoning within the plan development. So there would be that distinction between a plan development and the city's master plan. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. I'll try again.
Sure.
Okay. In the case of a plan development, that is essentially the master developer's zoning for the areas covered by the plan development. So if in fact it required an amendment to the city's master plan, the underlying master plan designation, if it involved, again, multiple parcels, potentially I would say that these would be properties that are involved, where you have lots of different owners, and I would say in a case like that, if you're actually seeking to change the underlying master plan land use designation, that it would be a case where it would be appropriate for the city to sponsor the amendments. If you have an individual property owner and all they're looking to do is change the land use designation on their parcel, then that would be a case where I would suggest to you that, yes, the property owner should make application and have to pay the fee to do that.
In the particular case that brought this on up, there was an area plan done
Yes.
for an area. That the developer paid, we went through the entire process of staff to go get this area plan done. Conformed to our master plan, conformed to everything. Everybody thought it was a great idea at the time, including staff.
I believe the master plan for the Aratsville East Area Plan, and you know, that precedes my time in this position, but I believe that was done by the city. That was a city-initiated area plan, because that was before that area had been brought into the city of Sparks.
Can anybody verify that? Is that true? Because that's not the way I understand that happened.
We can, you know, I can certainly look into it and bring it back to you in terms of
I think
the
that's
response to your
important.
question.
I think that's important to your case is did the city did or did not do the East Area Plan? Because the whole time that I've been asking the questions, it was done by the developer brought it to the city. We've been 3 months on this thing. I've been asking questions about it. And this is the first I've heard that we did the original East Area Master Plan.
It's my understanding that, which I'll have to verify, because again, I can't confirm this sitting here today, but it's my understanding that the Aratsville East Area Plan was basically prepared, by the city for purposes of essentially zoning that property while it was still in the city sphere of influence, and so that was a way for the city to exert its planning authority within the sphere of influence before that was brought into the city of Sparks.
I'd really like confirmation on that, because that's, in all of our discussions over the last 3 months, we've covered this item 3 times already, and that's not the way it's been presented to me in the past. And you're right, it was before my time, so I can't sit here and tell you yes or no that it isn't. The way I see that, I'll get past this, way I see this is that you have a situation, and maybe we can just change it. You have a situation where a developer comes in and does his area plan to be conforming to the master plan. Is that correct? Is that normally how it happens?
The only area plan that we've done again in recent years was the one for the West Pyramid area, and that was a case where the developer, initiated and essentially prepared the proposed area plan for the subject area. The ones that we've been eliminating from our master plan over the years typically have been city-prepared area plans.
Well, then I guess with all this, with the confusion and everything else like that, I would say that I think there's only one item on here that makes sense to me, is that if a developer or a group of owners want to come on in and ask for city's funds to go ahead and change our master plan, I think they need to come to the council for that. I don't think that that's a staff-level decision, because obviously for 3 months, I brought this on up because I saw this going on. I said, what's going on here? And for 3 months, the answers I get are different than what they're sitting here at today at this table on this proposal. And so I think if we're going to have developers want to come in and change master plans, and they're going to want the city of Sparks to pay for it, I believe that's a council decision and not just a staff decision.
Councilman Schmidt, I think that we go through this process of amending the master plan usually a number of times over the course of any given year. Sometimes they are text changes, as we've discussed here. Sometimes they are, in fact, changes that involve a larger area like the Aratsville East Area Plan. There's not one single property owner that is benefiting necessarily. Again, all we're doing here is suggesting to you that if the City Council wants to provide staff and the Planning Commission, because the master plan, the state law basically assigns responsibility for the adoption, the preparation and adoption of master plans, and the City Council, as the governing body, as a legislative body, has to approve them as well. But basically, state law assigns that responsibility to the Planning Commission of any particular jurisdiction. What we were trying to do with this, and it's the council's prerogative as to whether they want to adopt these criteria or not. I think it's really an attempt here to identify those instances where we can speed up, if you will, streamline our processes, which the city council has asked us to consider doing as part of our land use planning process. So, for example, again, I'm suggesting to you that there are certain instances where we can, rather than come to the city council and ask the city council, do you want us to move forward with proceeding with this master plan amendment? If you want to provide us these criteria in the form of an adopted policy, we can apply them when we have one of these potential master plan amendments come up, and if it applies, we can go to the Planning Commission and start the process. If the city council would prefer us to bring each and every one of these to the city council before we initiate them, then that is the city council's prerogative. I'm not here to argue this.
My question, Armando, is that haven't you brought to the city council when you want to do a master plan amendment before? I know it's a planning commission item that they get to approve, but you brought to the city council when you want to go change a master plan, amendment that something's going to go and we're going to pay for. And all I'm asking here now is it your decision? You come to the city council for that approval. If a developer wants to walk on in, you get to have the approval, but the council doesn't get to say so about it. And I think that these are taxpayer funds that you're asking us to use for the benefit. You have to make the case of why that benefit is good for this particular area, whatever the reason might be. I think it's as simple as just coming to the council and asking, is this, this is the first I've heard it's only $2,500. It was more than that last time. I think we should have the say-so if you're going to go out and spend taxpayer dollars for developers or property owners that want to come in and change their master plan designation.
And again, Councilman Schmidt, if it's a case where a particular property owner wants to change the master plan for benefit of their specific property, staff is typically going to say, apply, pay the fee, and we'll initiate the process. It would be only in those cases where it's not clear or it appears certainly that there are other things at play that it's an amendment that potentially affects other property owners, or there's multiple property owners involved. The things that are covered by the proposed criteria, in those cases, then we would have, if the city council provides us this guidance in the form of a policy, then we would say, okay, that makes sense for city sponsorship. We would go to the Planning Commission and initiate the process. If the city council would like us to bring any such potential amendment before you to bless it before we start the process, then that is certainly the city council's prerogative.
And in the situation we're covering here, it's my understanding 2 developers came forward to ask for this change, and staff looked at it and said this change needs to go through a bigger area.
We looked at it, and we, in the course of our analysis, we came to the conclusion, based on that analysis, that the Ratsable East Area Plan basically had outlived its usefulness, and it affected, a lot of property owners. And we took that to the Sparks Planning Commission because I believe that's been our practice in the past. And following past practice, we started that process. And as to whether ultimately that master plan amendment is approved or not will depend on the city council.
And there's my point. Two developers came to you, said we need to do this. You looked at it and say, yeah, it affects everybody. Let's spend the money and go. You went through the process. The city council never had a chance to say, what is the benefit going on here? What is this? What are we doing? Is this in the budget to do this? Is this where is this money coming from? And remember, you guys, up until just recently, were subsidized by the general fund. So every penny you spend has some accountability to the general fund. This year is obviously different because you're self-supporting back again. All I'm asking is, this was a red flag to me. All I'm asking is something like this, when developers are involved and we're changing things and it's costing the city to go ahead and do this, let the city council have the option to look at it and say, is this the right thing to do or not? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If I understand correctly, then the criteria is then, as proposed, any time that city staff believes that perhaps this is something the city should take on and do itself, you want to see it first. Is that what I understand?
I think that's appropriate.
Okay. That's certainly in your purview to tell us to do that. We're here asking for a policy for us to work under, because we realize that we stepped on your toes with the way we handled the Aratsabal East Master Plan Amendment. We brought forward language saying this is how we think, this is a reasonable set of criteria that we think would work. You're telling us something different. So we'll do whatever it is that you instruct us to do.
Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Kerrigan?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this is just the criteria for when the city is going to sponsor it. That's how I see it. We're not using any taxpayer money, we're using staff time. Is that correct? So, and if you want to say that you're on a salary, then you're, on 24/7 anyway. So I just saw this as a criteria for when the city is going to sponsor something, because I thought in the case of the Aratsabal, this was a good sponsor by the city, because there were a lot of, people involved. And what are you going to do? Charge everybody, $25 or something, or however many people are out there? So I just see this as a criteria, and if you don't like the criteria, then we could add, go ahead and make a motion to add that if you want. But I didn't, the text change, I don't see that as a problem. I mean, when you just want to change some wording, why should we make somebody pay? Yeah. So I didn't have a problem with it.
Does this streamline the process a little bit?
That is an effort, one of the considerations that we try and make. And as we were working with the Aratsabal East area plan, and we saw the requested changes coming from two different parties, put that together with our desire as part of the comprehensive plan update to scrap it anyway. We thought it was logical to combine that, have us start it and run with it as being a more efficient use of time and money.
So you're telling me we're going to do this anyway?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
we were
going
going to present it. We were going to present it as part of the comprehensive plan update to you. That would have been in our recommendation to strip the Aratsabal East area plan out of our master plan.
Okay.
But we're seeing this anyway, correct?
You will see it after it's been to regional planning.
Okay. So we got two chances at it.
Yep. Ms. Ratty?
My first is just a question of clarification, just to make sure that I'm following, is it doesn't change the master plan amendment process at all, it just changes who pays for it. That.
Well, it changes, I think to Mr. Schmidt's, or Councilman Schmidt's point, it's really sort of a matter of delegating the decision as to whether the city sponsors the amendment or not. Pardon me. The criteria were really the basis for staff making the decision under delegated authority from the city council. Okay, this fits the criteria. Let's move forward with city sponsorship of this proposed amendment. I think what Councilman Schmidt is saying is that decision should only be made by the city council.
Okay. So it does give you a little bit more discretion to move forward on an amendment and choose to pay for
City
it.
sponsorship essentially means that we're not charging an applicant, that the applicant isn't initiating the process.
Okay. So then I guess the other piece that I'm thinking is I feel like, again, we're being a little bit schizophrenic as a council, and that in one meeting we'll sit there and we'll say, gosh, just use common sense and discretion. This seems really silly. Move forward. Why are we seeing this? And then we'll turn around and in another area say, why aren't you bringing this to us?
Yeah.
We should have all the control. And so that's how this feels like. And so I think we've made really strong statements at our council planning retreats to say we really want to streamline the process. We want it to be easier for business. How can you take steps out for business so that it's a business-friendly community and developers will come here? So I see this as an effort that is in alignment with that request that we made to you at the council retreats that we had. I guess the second piece that I have is I always get very concerned when we start to make policy off of just one instant. And so while I think the Aratsabal situation may have been a jumping off point for some thinking and some conversation, I don't want to get a policy that is all hung up on one situation that may or may not ever happen again. So it needs to be good policy that's more global than that one instance. So even if it doesn't match up with that one instance, my question is it still good direction for staff? So what I think you're looking for is a set of guidelines that keep you within a box, but it's a slightly bigger box than what it's been before, so that you have some discretion to move forward and streamline things for developers who want to do business in our community, and particularly in this case where there's a land use that affects multiple people or is simple, and it just doesn't make sense to charge them $2,500 to go through the master plan process. That's what I see it as, but my big concern really is it bigger than just the Aratsabal thing? Is it policy that makes sense over a larger spectrum of issues?
And I believe that it is as proposed and presented to you today by Armando. It's a representation of how we have tried to approach it as your staff with the direction we've had before, and take that and put it into a bit more formal definition.
Okay.
So certainly the Aratsabal East Area Plan is the jumping off point for today's discussion.
Which is fine, something has to bring it to mind.
But it's our belief as your staff that the policy as proposed does have, citywide broad applicability, and is not a single example solution.
But it does open up the box for some staff discretion to make common sense decisions when you see a place where you can be more helpful to a community that's trying to move a development forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's where I'm coming from. We've been talking about making it easier for the developers and trying to get things, because we don't like to get the phone calls because it's taken 6 months to do something that should take 2 months, and on and on. We all get those same phone calls. So I think it's a good policy. Mr. Kerrigan.
Yeah, that being said, I'm going ahead and try a motion, see where it goes. Move to approve the proposed criteria for determining when the city should sponsor amendments to the master plan.
Do you have a second, Mr. Smith?
Second.
Questions, Ms. Ratty?
I was supposed to be second.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kerrigan, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve it as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it. 6.6, consideration and possible approval of the cooperative agreement and the 2012 annual operating plan between the City of Sparks and City of Reno on behalf of the Sparks and Reno Fire Departments. Mr. Chief Flock.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Members of the council, for the record, Andy Flock, Fire Chief. You have before you a cooperative agreement and the 2012 annual operating plan for your consideration and potential approval between the City of Sparks and the City of Reno. This replaces a previously existing agreement. If you looked at the agreement, it incorporates both mutual aid and automatic aid. There's only one area of automatic aid, and that would be the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. We are asking the City of Reno to provide initial response along with us. They would be responding out of Reno Fire Station 6 on Mira Loma. Everything else in the agreement is mutual aid. It is very similar in a lot of aspects to the agreement that you approved 2 weeks ago for Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. With that, I'm here for any questions.
Questions, Mr. Smith?
Approved.
Whoops, we got a public comment first, unfortunately.
I don't move to approve.
Okay, we'll get you back in a minute. Public comment, Kathy? Now, Kathy, I'm going to ask you again, make sure you stick to the agenda item. This is about the agreement between the City of Sparks and the City of Reno on behalf of the fire departments.
Yep.
Yeah.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, Lisa Marie Presley, John Benet Ramsey, John Steele, and I'm also the United States President. I'm very unhappy with the Reno and Sparks Fire Chief. The problem is that I've been going to the county, Washoe County meetings over there, and I am expected to be there tomorrow. And we have been bringing up the fire chief of Reno, and he has never been hired. The problem is that the real fire chief has been set on fire. They set the grass on fire to make sure that the little boy is dead.
Kathy, this is about the agreement.
Yes, I know.
You're not talking about the agreement now. Make sure you stay on the subject here.
Because this agreement does not have the right fire chief. He's never been hired. He's stealing payroll checks. And he is nothing but a brutal murderer. know we've been talking about this for a long time now, and I think it should be addressed. It should be over. It should be done, and it should be brought to everybody that is concerning. It's concerning the public, too. The public is really upset that he is still alive and still doing the same thing wherever he goes. And it's the public involved. They set their house on fire because they find out
Kathy, you got
what
to keep
happened
it
to
to the,
that
got to keep
person.
it to the agreement.
And it's, what is it, victims now. We have victims, and those victims need to be protected too.
Thank you, Ms. Franhorst.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Smith?
Move to approve.
You have a second, Mr. Kerrigan?
Yeah, Chief, I wanted to thank you again for this, putting together the cooperative agreement. This really looks good, and we get along fine with the two fire departments that we're working with, so.
Thank you, Councilman. This will go forward to the city of Reno on the 27th.
Okay, I second it.
Have a motion by Councilman Smith, second by Councilman Kerrigan to approve 6.6 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion?
I also want to thank the chief. It's a good job. We're staying neutral on everything.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We're on a roll. Consideration, 6.7, consideration and possible approval of amendment number 6 to the cooperative agreement between the City of Reno, Washoe County, and the City of Sparks for services related to the operation of the Community Assistance Center. Mr. Ornelas.
Mayor Martini, members of the City Council, Armando Ornelas, City Planner. This is the proposed Sixth Amendment to the cooperative agreement between the City of Reno, Washoe County, and the City of Sparks for operation of the Community Assistance Center. This essentially provides for the base operations of the CAC. This Sixth Amendment would extend the current agreement through fiscal year 2012-13, and you know, I think if you've looked through it, it basically what it does is it specifies the amount of funding to be contributed by each of the three jurisdictions. In 12-13, as in the current year, basically the City of Sparks would provide 15% of their CDBG grant amount, which in FY 12-13 would amount to $86,081, plus an additional $8,919 from the city's general fund for a total of $95,000. There is that difference between the what's proposed for next year and the current year, and that is that there would be some money coming from the city's general fund, the $89,19. And the intent there was to basically get the City of Sparks contribution up to the equivalent of a half cent of property tax, which is what the jurisdictions agreed to, at least in principle, back in advance of fiscal year 2010-11. So that is basically the sum of the agreement.
Questions, Mr. Ratty?
That was just my only question. There's nothing here that's different than what we talked about at the joint meeting?
No, the City of Reno will remain as lead agency, and that's been affirmed in this agreement as well. There is in the joint meeting there was discussion about funding for the community triage center, and I think there's an agreement being developed for purposes of funding the triage center. That would be a separate agreement and has not been prepared yet. And that would come forward as a separate item to the City Council. At this point, I don't anticipate it would be before the second meeting in July because it's just not ready.
Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That answers some of my questions. So the CTC that's in here, what is that?
The CTC is one of, there's basically three core services that are provided for by the agreement in terms of the funding. The operation of the shelters, security, and then the Tom Vetica Resource Center. The triage center it operates on the campus, but the funding for that is not covered by this agreement.
Even though it says Community Triage Center is part of this agreement.
It's part of the agreement, but the funding for it is not provided for by this agreement. This is for the Community Assistance Center's core operations.
Then my other question goes to, we're using up half of our community development block grant for the center, correct?
15%, which is the maximum that we're allowed to use for this type of use by HUD.
15%?
15.
Yeah, 15%.
And where's the rest of our community development block grant going?
A portion of it goes for administration of the grant and our housing program. And then in this next year, the bulk of it is going for funding those pedestrian improvements in this neighborhood south of City Hall here.
So it's my understanding that as of starting July 1st, the City of Sparks won't be funding any of the nonprofit agencies that we funded for the last 13, 15 years through the Triumphant.
That's correct. As of now, I mean, the City of Reno and Washoe County have made the determination that they are not going to participate in the Washoe County Human Services Consortium. So, essentially, the consortium as it has existed in the past will at least be suspended. The City of Sparks was participating in that consortium in this last year with general funds, not CDBG funds.
And the reason why I say that is I think the council should be very, very aware that, the food bank, abused women's shelter, all those things that we've funded for 15 years, we've received national recognition for, that's $750,000 that, basically being wiped off the map and nobody's funding anymore. And we can expect to see those back into the chambers just as they were 15 years ago before the consortium started.
Mr. Kesselman-Schmidt, you're right. There's no mechanism in place to provide local government funding to those organizations.
So basically what we're doing is we're picking one core service, and the rest of them have to find their own funding.
Well, that will be up to the City Council. When the Community Triage Center memorandum of understanding is ready for consideration, it'll be brought forward. The City Council, the Sparks City Council, will certainly have the option of providing funding for that or not, and then the City Council will have to make a decision as to whether they want to fund other nonprofits, but that's.
And we all, those who do have history, realize just how difficult that was. I mean, it was very difficult. It was bad for the nonprofits because they had no stability at all. And that's my. I don't have a problem with the numbers. I don't have a problem with this because I think it's we committed to do the half cents. I have a problem that eventually, when this is all finished, we've abandoned 20 nonprofits in this community that now have to go find a way to fend for themselves or get support, and they will be back in front of the City Council for funding.
And I absolutely agree with you that the Washoe County Human Services Consortium, played a valuable role within our region, and it's unfortunate that regional collaborative has essentially, at least for now, ceased to exist.
Thank you,
Mr. Lawson.
I want to make this clear. Then this is something we basically have to do because we've agreed to it in the past.
Well, as you can see, it is the Sixth Amendment. We've been participating in it for at least the last several years. It is, the homeless shelter is intended to be a regional collaboration to provide those services to homeless and to try to avert homelessness through things like the Resource Center. You don't have to. The City of Sparks does not have to do this. It's something that you have done in recent years, and it's your decision.
Do we have an agreement, a memorandum of understanding, or something binding that says we have to do it?
This is the agreement. This is the proposed Sixth Amendment to that existing agreement, and it's renewed essentially annually. It's based on and it follows the budget processes of each of the local governments. So that's why you're seeing it now as opposed to, say, before the budget processes were concluded. So this is where you make that decision.
Something we've done in the past and something we committed to, and really it's for the homeless for us, and our commitment is really kind of a bargain for us not having to have a homeless center as far as.
We do have an obligation under as a recipient of a CDBG entitlement grant to address homelessness, whether it's through this mechanism or some other mechanism. If we're going to continue to be a CDBG entitlement community, we need to address homelessness one way or another. This has been the mechanism primarily through which we've chosen to do that, to address that responsibility of ours under that grant.
It's ready.
Well, and we also agreed verbally at the last joint
Yeah.
meeting. I mean, we, as a group, did. So, two questions. Or maybe it's just one, the money, so we swapped the money that we were giving to the Washoe County Human Services Consortium and this money because it was easier to follow the federal guidelines and do exactly what you just said, which is prove to the federal government that as a CDBG entitled community, we were meeting our responsibilities towards homelessness. So it's actually easier administratively?
It's essentially, the homeless are, under HUD rules, are basically presumed to be eligible for the use of CDBG funds.
Right.
With the grants we were making to the other nonprofits, it required each of those nonprofits to keep records about who they were serving.
Right.
And frankly, some nonprofits were better at doing that than others.
Right. So it was iffy. It was easier for us. It also streamlined it for the nonprofits that we were giving money to.
Yeah, and it made it, I think the accountability and the reporting in terms of the nonprofits was somewhat easier for them because, they weren't subrecipients of HUD money.
Yeah. And I was going to say that I am greatly saddened by the dissolution of the Washoe County Human Services Consortium, as well as a past executive director who applied for money and used to have to go on the road to all three councils and all three chambers and instead had the uniform collaborative process. It really is a burden on the nonprofits, and I'm saddened that that's going away. But I guess my question is did we know that before the budget process? I mean, we did a swap from CDBG to general fund, so is that general fund money still sitting there? I mean, is it still allocated in our current budget to go to the consortium?
There is money essentially for, and I'll defer to the manager on this, but I think, as I understand it, there's basically money that equivalent amount of money is in the general fund budget. And frankly, what your staff would be proposing that you look at as one possible source of funding the CTC when that MOU comes forward is to look at that source of funds. Now, that's going to be the city council's decision, ultimately.
Okay.
Okay, questions?
But we haven't made that decision, nor is that this agenda item.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Looking for a motion? Mr. Schmidt?
I'll make a motion to approve as outlined by staff.
No second? Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve as outlined by staff, number 6.7. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. 6.8 is the first reading of Bill number 2645.
Bill number 2645, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Section 2.12.060, Powers and Duties, and Chapter 12, Section 12.24.010, Definitions, 12.24030, Times when parks open, and 12.24090, Parks Rules of the Sparks Municipal Code, and providing other matters properly related thereto.
This is the first reading for Bill number 2645. This public hearing and second reading of this bill will be conducted at the regular city council meeting on Monday, July 9th. Questions, Mr. Kerrigan?
Thank you, Mayor. If you turn to the ordinance, I just have a recommended change. On number C, it talks about recommend, this is what the Parks and Rec Commission does to the city council, recommend park and playground improvements. So that has to do with money. It also recommends to the city council any name changes. We know why that is, because it could get pretty political. But I think Tracy, I think I should be changed because they're fees, and I think Parks and Rec are appointed. I think the onus falls on this city council anytime we do fees. Okay? In other words, if somebody in the community doesn't like, they can come to us. And instead of saying approve facility fees, I'd like to see I change to recommend to the city council all facility use fees, park use fees, and registration fees.
Okay. It's been passed, I've been going to them annually for a long time.
This is the first, I was just going to.
I'm
so go
sorry,
ahead.
Tracy Dominguez, Parks and Recreation Director. I've been going before the commission long before my current
asking for
position.
fees?
Yeah, we've
But
been.
it's not been in the ordinance before, has it? In other words,
No,
why?
because it's been common practice that we've always gone to them on an annual basis. We go every January to make any recommendations of fee increases and/or new fees with new programming coming in. And then it is then a part of the budget process that you approve. Those are all have been in the budget process for revenue.
Oh, okay.
So we still see it?
So you still see it?
Well,
Yeah, I think
was
that's what
thinking since
Cheryl's
you
idea
were putting
was.
it in writing that I would put it that we really, I just don't want somebody to come up to me and complain because they really are disappointed. In other words,
Sure.
whenever you mess with fees.
Well, I think because historically, that's the way it's been done, that was legal's opinion, was to add this in there, since it's what they've been doing, and then
Okay.
you see it through the budget process.
Then maybe we should put that in there, that we approve it, the budget. In other words, I want everybody to understand that we've got the final say so.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Chet, is that going to be hard to put in there for a change?
Nah, we can do that.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Does anybody have a problem with that? Julia, do you?
I just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying, because I actually think that the Parks and Rec Commission has been doing a banner job of raising those fees, and we just had a very full and packed public meeting about swimming pool fees that didn't end up at this dais, and maybe I like that that's where it landed.
Okay, in that case, then let's change C and D. Then why do they recommend a budgetary item to us if it's in the budget already? Does that make sense?
They recommend park improvements.
Yeah. Why don't
Just turn it
you
down
go
a while
ahead?
ago,
If you want the Parks and Rec to take control, then let them take control of that too. In other words, why are they coming to us for budget, for playground equipment?
Because they have no budget authority. They are only have fee
No,
setting
but they're
authority.
raising fees, but this is talking about review the tentative budget of Parks and Rec Department and make recommendation concerning the tentative budget to the playground improvement.
It may be the difference between revenues and expenses, though.
No,
And,
I think common practice is we've been able to set fees on the Parks and Recreation Commission.
yes.
That is a portion of the revenue that the Parks Department gets, but we have not had any expenditure authority. We've only been able to recommend things that we would like the council to look at.
Okay.
Now, I will say, I mean, in the 3.5 years that I've been there, it's been working very well. They are very diligent. They spend probably far more
No,
time
that's
and
no
attention.
problem. I mean, if you want to let them hang out, that's, I was trying to get
Well,
it so where somebody could call us up and, but if you want to lay it on the Parks Department, that's fine with me. I'll just give me your phone number so I can.
Well, I guess to me, it's no different than and I understand it is different, so that the Health Department Board has a similar situation where it's a mix of appointed and elected. So, I mean, we're giving some appointed officials, and frankly, the appointed there's 4 to 3 on that board. So I don't think there's a blanket, in my mind, there's a blanket exception that you don't want to give that much authority to an appointed body. I respect this appointed body. I think they're doing a great job. And frankly, actually going the other way, if we take too much more away from them, it's pretty light right now,
Okay.
what that group gets to
I
do.
wasn't trying to take it away from them. I was just trying to give people
Just trying to
someplace to go that, I am an elected official, so are you. They can come to us, but.
They'll still come to you.
They'll still come to you. Did you hear from swimmers?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't hear from any swimmers, so.
I think we had a petition that came
No,
forward.
the only time I heard is when we were closing the hours down.
Yeah, that was the one that turned into the fee discussion, which
Right.
I will say that I thought the Parks and Rec Commission handled deftly and with compassion and with some creative problem solving. So I really do think they're close to it. They're users of the facilities. They get it and they're dedicated to their job.
And I think in the end, the final decision is made during the budget process by the council.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
That was legal opinion.
Never mind.
I just want to point out, and I see where Mike is going, but I want to point out the other side of it. That means we're setting fees for baseball or softballs and.
Every
I
little
mean,
class.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Every single class we got.
Yeah, approving the budget
I mean,
is one
Never
thing.
mind.
But day-to-day setting how much it costs to put your kid in daycare, I don't want to do that.
Christmas crafts for little elves.
Okay, let's,
I just want all the cell phone numbers for everybody that sits on Parks and Rec so I can.
Oh, they
let's
found
move
us.
on to 7.1. since that was the first
Okay,
reading.
First reading. The first reading.
Thank you.
7.1, this is a second reading, public hearing and possible approval of bill number 2644, an ordinance amending Chapter 15 of the Sparks Municipal Code, amending Section 15.05.100, adoption, and Section 15.05.108.3.9, energy efficiency inspection to reflect the adoption of codes and local amendments and providing other matters properly related thereto. Mr. Miranda, I was wondering why you were all dressed up. Go ahead, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. For the record, Mark Miranda, Building Official, Community Services, Building and Safety Division. Basically, I just want to give you a short background on why we're here today to adopt the 2009 Energy Efficiency Code. Back in 2009, there was money given to the state from the Department of Energy for to the tune of about $34 million for projects for energy efficiency. Excuse me. As part of that commitment, the state committed that we would adopt the most recent energy code statewide. NRS requires that the local governments adopt and enforce the 2009 IECC. Over the last year, I have had meetings with Nevada State Office of Energy, the Builders Association of Northern Nevada, the Nevada Association of General Contractors, the Sparks Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee, to discuss how the adoption and implementation of the new energy code would affect the building industry. And with that, I'll just conclude my presentation and open it up for any questions.
Questions for Mark? No questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. So open to the public. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this particular agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for action. Questions? If not, looking for a motion.
I move to approve bill number 2644, an ordinance amending Chapter 15 of the Sparks Municipal Code.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve agenda item 7.1 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to comments from the city council and city manager. Anyone? Okay.
Well, let me have one comment.
Go ahead.
I want to congratulate Councilman Ratty's other job she has is Girl Scout chairman? CEO, sorry. And the Girl Scouts, and I was able to go out and spend a little time with them this weekend and do a little volunteering, and had approximately 3,000 people out for this great event, and a good community event and good wholesome fun. So thank you for what you do.
Hopefully those Girl Scouts whipped you into shape there, Mr. Lawson.
Yes, they did.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay, comments from the public. I have one, Kathy Brandhorst. Okay, now Kathy, you're free to talk about whatever you would like. I won't interrupt. Unless you talk about killing me.
Okay. My name is Kathy Brandhorst, Lisa Marie Presley, John Benet Ramsey, John Steele, and I'm also the United States President. I wanted to bring up the wires and poles are now being set up all over the cities again. And remember, they are just stealing gas and electric, and they're also stealing phone service from everybody's homes. And I also noticed from my room, I'm only living in a motel room, they have wires connected to my room where they can get gas and electric from my room. And also my phone service has been stolen, and I have no phone service at all. And I just wanted to let you know those poles and wires must be lifted out, because otherwise we're going to get large bills and we are the ones that are not protected because the people who cannot afford to pay for it, it will be on our bills. And I just wanted to let you know the problem is still existing with the same ones, including Bob Cashel, Vincent Nauman, and we have Charles Hoey, and also we have other people who are still here in our area with their guns, and they're not protecting the public because they use the guns on people, the public in general. And what they do, they fill them up with bullet holes if they're a police officer because they were arrested. They will fill a sheriff up with bullet holes because they just wanted them arrested, or something like that. And I just wanted to let you know that is really horrible because the police officer does not have a chance, is what I'm trying to say. The gasoline is poured on their body, and guess what? There goes the match. And the police officer is burnt to a black crisp, or even their car is loaded with gasoline all over the car, and throw a match, and of course it's going to explode. And there's no protection with bullet holes either in those automobiles. They're not bulletproof.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further business, we're adjourned.
So I'd like to call to order the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting for June 25th, 2012 with roll call.
Vice Chairman Ratty?
Here.
Agency Secretary Patterson? Here.
Except for an answer, huh?
Good start.
Agency members Lawson? Absent. Martini?
Here.
Kerrigan?
Here.
Schmidt?
Here.
Chief Administrative Officer Curie?
Here.
Agency Attorney Adams?
Here. Need help?
I think I'm good. You
Agency
jump-
member Lawson?
Here. You jump in if you feel like you need to.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start with the item 3, recommendation of approval of the minutes of May 29th, 2012. Looking for a motion.
Move to approve, Madam Chair. Vice Chair. Second.
So I got a motion from Mayor Martini, second from Councilman Lawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, report of claims and bills from the period of May 6, 2012 through June 6, 2012. Looking for a motion.
Moved. Second.
Motion from Councilman Lawson, seconded by Mayor Martini. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Comments from the agency and Chief Administrative Officer.
Seeing none.
No comments? Comments from the public? Seeing none? We're adjourned.
Too late, Kathy.
Yeah.